Will the Revere City Council for May 1st please come to order and rise and salute the flag? Thank you. Yes. Roll call, please.
Roll call of the members. Councillor Janino.
Here.
Here. Councillor Guanasso.
Here.
Here. Councillor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councillor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councillor Moribito.
Here.
Here. Councillor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councillor Patch.
Here.
Here. Councillor Powers.
Here.
Here. Councillor Rotondo.
Present.
Here. Councillor Zambuto.
Here.
Here. And Council President Haas.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
17-130, certificate of merit. First.
Okay. Motion presented by Councillor Rotondo that the City Council award certificates of merit to registered nurses Adrian Maguire and Risa Ferrara for saving the life of a child at the Garfield School.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council President Haas, distinguished guests, Superintendent of Schools, Kelly. This is very emotional to me. It could have been my daughter. But that said, having worked as a nurse and a medic for well over 20 years, it's always very hard to save someone's life when they're dead. And I hate to use that word, but this child was pulseless. It's hard dealing with an adult. To deal with a child, it's just so much more harder. And for what Adrian and Risa have done is beyond miraculous. It's clearly a miracle. And again, it comes down to the very essence. My daughter goes to that school. That could be my child. It could be your child. It could be any one of you in the back there, too. And for me, that's the biggest thing here. These people saved someone's life. Literally, that was taken, it was gone, and brought them back to life. There's no greater gift in this world than life. And with that said, I'd like to ask the mayor if he'd like to say some words. And obviously, Councilor Haas.
I just have to say that as mayor, how proud I am to stand up here tonight, and especially Adrian, who is a very close family friend and someone who has been an incredible asset to the Revere Public Schools. And Risa, thank you, for your incredible work. And as the husband of a former school nurse, I know some of the work that you all do every day in saving kids' lives, and this is one event that is really incredible. And thank you, thank you. Great job.
I just want to say thank you to Lisa and Adrian for a job well done. And as George indicated, there's no better life than save a life. And congratulations to both of them. Congratulations.
We appreciate everybody's being here with us. Certainly, it's what we do every day. School nurses, work every day. We have 10 other colleagues who this is just part of our job. And we're ready if there's an emergency. We're ready if there's a cut or a scrape. So if you have children in Revere Public Schools, hug a nurse. It's Nurse Appreciation Week next week. And it's also a good time to say, get certified in CPR, choking, and first aid, because you never know when you're going to need it. Thanks.
To Risa Ferrara, City of Revere Certificate of Merit. This pales in what really should be given. Your exemplary effort to uphold the American Nurse Association Code of Ethics, especially to make decisions and take action consistent with the obligation to promote health and to provide optimal care by saving the life of a child at the Garfield School during the course of your duties as a school nurse. In witness whereof, this certificate of merit is gratefully bestowed by the City Council of the City of Revere, Massachusetts, on behalf of its citizens, the first day of May in the year of our Lord, 2017, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 204th year. You want to read the same thing? No. Yeah, because I know Adrian, she's like, let's get this over with, I want to get off the stage. Well, you know what? I don't know if people want to take pictures or what have you.
Okay. How about the superintendent with us, no?
Yeah.
Superintendent Kelly, please.
Dr. Kelly.
Maybe my,
Pinch my hands.
our principal from the Garfield School is
Is the
here.
principal from the Garfield here too, please?
Mr. Coots?
Mr. Coots.
Yep.
Diane? I don't know, you want someone up? Spouses? You can come up.
on.
If you want that.
Yep.
You know, folks, the reason why we're not mentioning the child's name is obviously for HIPAA, but I can guarantee you, there's no greater feeling. No, that's someone saying your kid.
He said, here comes the principal.
Dan, you coming?
Yeah.
Do you go see anyone?
I'm only figuring with
I get
Dr.
stuck on all
Malafitano.
the time.
Yeah, I'll help with this.
My kid gets in trouble.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
You got a pink envelope.
Whoever
there.
fixed whatever's.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. Candy, get up
Your
there.
homework.
Your homework, right?
That's good. Okay, are you ready?
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you, everyone.
Approval of the Journal of the regular meeting of March 27th and April 3rd. No, you don't need.
Also, today's Loyalty Day in America, established by Trump, President Trump, about the salute to the flag and all of the customs from the country. So I just want people to be aware of that. At this point in time, I'd like to take out of order Police Chief Red Ryan to speak about the communications order. Mr. Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yep.
Just very quickly, I want to introduce Chief Ryan. As those of you on the council know, we are in the process of finding the next chief of police for the city of Revere. And in that process, we've engaged Fred Ryan to perform an assessment center. And so that assessment center will be done tomorrow, and will have the tenants and make sure that the core tenants of 21st century policing strategies are implemented in the city of Revere. I wanted to make sure that you all got a chance to meet Mr. Ryan, got to talk to him and ask any questions that you might have. He could give a little briefing on what an assessment center is. I can say that without any question, Chief Ryan is probably the most well-respected person, or one of the most well-respected chiefs in the Commonwealth. He's gone through over 100 assessment centers, and this is a practice that is done in many, many different communities, and is one that is one of the most well-known and best ways to make sure that we get the top professional for a very, very important position in the city of Revere. So with that, I will give it over to Chief Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chief Ryan?
Council President, thank you. Honorable members of the council, good evening. Again, my name is Fred Ryan. I've been doing police executive assessment centers for about 15 years throughout New England, helped many municipalities choose their police chiefs and high commanding level officers. An assessment center, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, is a day-long of activities where the candidates will go through a series of simulations. We'll put them in a simulated environment and pose them with challenges and tasks that a police chief in the city of Revere might go through during their day-to-day business, and elicit a response from each of the candidates as it relates to the stimuli that we give them. The dimensions that we've identified as being important for the city of Revere's next police chief are decisiveness, initiative, judgment, leadership, communication skills, both orally and written, organizational sensitivity, planning and organization, problem analysis, and critical thinking. So with those job dimensions, I've designed a series of exercises that the candidates will all have the same opportunity to experience tomorrow, and we'll have a team of trained assessors who are all subject matter experts that will evaluate the candidates as they go through these exercises. Just want to pause to really compliment the mayor and the city for using this process. It's really an opportunity to give all of the candidates a level playing field and an opportunity to perform in an assessment center and let the results come out in the bottom right-hand corner. With that, Mr. Council President, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
Yes,
Sir.
Councilor Rotondo?
thank you. Being I believe the chief of police over in Arlington, is that correct? And
Yes, sir.
having worked over at the MBTA, you talked about certain stress questions. Are you going through a Dreyfus model? What type of model are you using?
So this is an assessment center designed pursuant to the ethical considerations and validation of executive assessment centers.
Okay, but you talk about psychological batteries just earlier.
No psychological batteries.
Okay,
I'm sorry if I misled you, sir.
thank you.
Councilor Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Chief Ryan, just out of curiosity, could you give us some examples of some cities or towns that you've worked with and some of the success or not successful stories that you may have where you have maybe a chief go through this exam, did really well so that you were able to measure your results, or maybe were there any failures that you recommended a chief that, you know, they found out a year or two later that wasn't the right choice?
Well, I guess a two-part question. I'll answer first part first. I've worked in, from towns on Cape Cod, such as Sandwich, selecting their police chief as far as west of Massachusetts as Chicopee. By and large, the team that I've worked with have realized a great deal of success at presenting the appointing authority with 2 or 3 candidates that are eligible to succeed in the position. Ultimately, it's the mayor's appointment, and we will provide the mayor with a report that will highlight the strengths and weaknesses of each candidate, and then he and his team can go through that report and give it whatever weight they deem appropriate. But ultimately, it's the mayor's appointment, not our appointment.
Just one other question.
Mr. President.
Have you found, have you worked with any cities like Revere or more urban cities or cities,
Right now, I'm working in the city of Lowell with high-ranking captains and lieutenants. I've recently worked in the city of Taunton and many other cities, city of Portland, Maine, and so on.
Thank
I've
you.
worked throughout New England, sir.
Councilor Keefe? Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, I'm well aware of your credentials. I don't know if you know mine. I was a police officer for 32 years and a Marine for 4 before that. So I had 9 chiefs in my time. So and with my Marine experience and my police experience, unfortunately, I know it's the mayor's, it's his pick. You know, unfortunately, I thought we had a great chief in Chief Gaffarelli, and we also lost a great lieutenant, John Goodwin, who got the deputy chief job at, just left to get the deputy chief job at Winthrop.
I did that assessment center.
So you know what a fine guy he is. I'm a little wary, but of what's gonna happen over there. My heart is still there at the Revere Police. I hope you do a fine job, which I know you will. And how much? I just got a few questions. It says the police on your description here that went out for the city, the position description. It said the salary is $175,000. Now, is that the top line, or are we going along with the, as we know, contract stipends and?
Yeah, well, as I understand it, that's negotiable between the mayor and the successful candidate.
So, to me, it's just a little bewildering that that's less paid, and I personally, I don't think that's enough pay for such an important job as chief. How many candidates do we have?
There were 5 candidates that originally applied. They were given an orientation the other day with a take-home written exercise, challenging exercise. 1 candidate has since withdrawn from the process, so we're down to 4.
Okay, and how long is the process going to take?
It'll be tomorrow for 8 hours.
And that's it?
Yes, for the candidates.
For candidates.
Then we'll have some written materials to evaluate. A portion of the day will require the candidates to go through some written exercises to test their written skills.
Well, good luck, and I hope you pick the right guy, because the mayor's going to live or die with him. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Councilor.
Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
You want to speak?
Chief, I do have several other questions. One, what is the cost of this at this point?
I don't know. I'd have to pull out the proposal. It's somewhere around $7,000 if my memory serves me.
That's it. So, okay. The other question is, how is this matrix being weighed based upon several issues? I mean, we have a beach, we have 3 MBTA stations, issues such as crowd control, counterterrorism, considering that we're near the airport, as well as community policing. How is this matrix being made, et cetera? And can we have access to it as, one, it's part of public record, and 2, I think if we're paying for it, we should see what we're getting.
Right. So it's a good question. As an element of the process, a job task analysis is performed, and you know, a number of data sources were sort of mined during that process. Not only the job description, really spent a lot of time with the mayor trying to understand what he visions for a successful police chief for the city of Revere.
Could you enunciate that, since you're obviously pairing that today with those 4 candidates? Without tipping any of the candidates off in advance of the assessment center, I would tell you that it's heavily weighted on community policing and 21st century policing for the city of Revere, and building trust, enhancing the trust among the citizens and the business people of Revere and its police department. That's clearly a priority of the mayor's, and I applaud that. Thank you.
Councilor Moribito.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one quick question. Is there a breakdown in percentage as to how the candidates will be measured, and how, like, what percent of that criteria will be based on your I guess, report.
Right. Again, so.
Because you mentioned quite a few criteria, and I was just wondering, based on what you're assessing, the tools you're assessing, is there a percentage breakdown? Is it broken down evenly, or does one characteristic better than the other? So that's my question, with
Thank
the
you, sir.
importance of it.
Yeah, again, at the risk of not showing my hand to the candidates who are likely watching this very hearing, all the exercises are weighted and graded equally. However, some of the dimensions that I read off as having been identified as important dimensions to succeed in this position will be evaluated more frequently. So, for example, leadership may be evaluated more frequently than judgment. But all of the exercises have the same value.
Thank you. I'd like to see that formula after our chief is chosen.
You'll have a the mayor will have a detailed report from me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Ryan.
Sir.
Certainly, it's a heavy task that you have before you. How heavily do you weigh on past performance of the individuals and their work record?
Yeah. Again, I want to be clear. This process establishes an eligibility list for the mayor. You know, I or my team do not select your next police chief. We establish an eligibility list, rank ordered, with the person who performs best on the assessment center and so on down the line. The mayor and his team, I would expect, would look at past discipline, past performance, commendations, and any other data that the city has with which to help inform the mayor in his selection of the next police chief.
So,
but we don't choose your next police chief. The mayor does.
In effect, what you're doing is you're selecting an individual based on your interview, and you place the same value of importance on every. You don't put a weighted value on each question. You have the same value for each question or concern that you have.
Again, Council, they're not interview questions. They're exercises. So, for example, you know, tomorrow this will not be one of the exercises, so the candidates can check this off.
I'm sure they're listening.
Yeah, they can check this one off the list. But we could have a simulated press briefing after a critical incident in the city of Revere, set up our assessors as role players, and task the candidate with running a press conference and look at their skills in terms of managing a difficult press, managing difficult questions, managing a stressful environment, and we evaluate the performance based on the stimuli that we give them. These are not interview questions. These are exercises that we're putting them into a simulated environment. It's like going into an electronic simulator.
You had, over the weekend, you had conference interviews with each of the candidates?
I met with each of the candidates to give them an orientation. That was on Thursday or Friday of last week. I don't recall. I've been a little busy.
Okay, and you stated before that you not only do towns, you do a lot of cities, and you've been doing it for 15 years, and
yes, sir.
And you have the expertise to pass your judgment on to our community. And what the findings are going to be very important for our community. Based on we have so many different facets of the way our life is here. But we have to intertwine with Revere Beach. We have to intertwine with Logan Airport. And we're referred to as a regional traffic area. So there's a lot of impact that goes on within this community that doesn't live here in this community. Mm-hmm. And so that's been, that's an important part of what we as elected officials have to bear in mind is to what happens when all this regional traffic, with all these other interests that are surrounding us, that people come to enjoy and frequent.
Right. Yeah, the other thing, Council, those are excellent points. And the other thing I really want to drive home is I don't do any of the evaluating tomorrow. I bring in a team of police chiefs from outside of this region who don't know any of your candidates. And they look very objectively at those dimensions that I read off and how the candidate performs in those dimensions. It's completely anonymous, level playing field for every candidate, same amount of time for each exercise. It's very, very structured. I choreograph the activities for the day, and I write the report for the mayor. I do not do any of the evaluating. The subject matter experts that I'm bringing in all have experience doing assessment centers, and all are successful police chiefs in the Commonwealth.
Well, Chief, do a good job for our community. We're looking forward to a good chief.
I will, sir. I spent a lot of time in Revere Beach as a child,
Thank
so.
you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for your attendance.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome, Chief. I've got some comfort right off the bat that you picked John Goodwin for, he was always my choice to be the chief here.
He did a fine job in his assessment.
Yeah, and he is a first-class individual. And so that brings me some comfort that you're leading this. You weren't involved 15 so years ago here in the assessment center we had then, were you?
I was not.
Okay. I guess the questions I want to ask, I know you can't answer because it'll tip off the candidate. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. I'm comforted by the fact that you picked John Goodwin for over there, and that shows me that you know talent when you see it.
Well, trust me, Council, the candidates will be challenged tomorrow. The other value to this is while there's only one police chief position, each of the candidates will learn about their own skill set, their strengths and their weaknesses, and help them with their career development moving forward. And
Well, I was involved heavily back many years ago when I was chairman of public safety, and
Okay.
when we picked a chief back then. So I know the process, and I applaud you for your work that you do.
thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I concur with Councilor Zambudo with regard to Mr. Goodwin. I think, we are losing in this city a very talented individual with regard to police work. I couldn't think of anyone that I would say would be any more qualified than John Goodwin. And that does give me some comfort also to know that you were involved in that. My central question is, your experience throughout the Commonwealth with regard to police chiefs, what is the norm out there for a salary for police chief? I'm just sort of curious.
I mean, without doing any analysis, it's in the 200 range.
Around 200? Okay. Now, second question.
Don't hold me to that, Council.
No, I won't. I won't. I'm just trying to get a rule of thumb. Second question is police chiefs throughout the Commonwealth, whether a large city, small city, or whatever, where it's an administrative position and a leadership position. Do they work details, a police chief, does he work a detail out there overtime?
As a general rule, no.
As a general rule, no. I sort of agree with that myself.
There are some isolated cases where they do.
I remember back years ago when a police chief made twice the salary of a sworn officer, patrolman, and that was it. There were no extra monies involved with details or overtime or anything else. You took the job, and that was your salary, and that's what you did. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. I should point out that I also serve as the Vice President of the Massachusetts Major City Police Chiefs Association, of which Revere is a member.
Yeah.
And, when I submit my report to the mayor and I go back to my day life, I've been a police chief for 18 years. I'll work alongside your new chief, and I'll be invested in his or her success moving forward. Be willing to help the incumbent.
That's good.
Thank you very much for your insight.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Ryan, I just I'm very curious about something. I was just wondering if any of the applicants were outside of the city that applied, that were outside of the city that weren't currently on the Revere Police Force.
No, Councilor, as I understand it, pursuant to city ordinance, it's limited to internal applicants only.
Right.
So all the applicants are internal.
Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Chief, for coming before us this evening.
Good evening.
Earlier when you listed all the qualities that you look for in a chief, I think we're really grateful to have it in Chief Caffarelli during the time that we had it, and it really was a pleasure to work with him. But I really have to give the mayor a lot of credit for going through this process, because I think it shows a lot about what our city puts effort into, and that we're really committed to making the best decision for the people of the City of Revere. But I do have a question for you. I think my colleagues touched on more of the logistical issues in the city, the airport, the MBTA. But I think another big issue, when you're dealing with the municipality is a chief that deals with both internal and external issues. So is there a part of this process that goes through kind of those scenarios as well?
Again, without tipping my hand, the short answer is yes.
Thank you, Chief.
And it's pretty clear that the mayor is given a very high priority to building trusting relationships among the citizenry of Revere and the business people of Revere and its police department. And that's clearly loud and clear to me and my team, a focus of the mayor's. And so,
I'm glad to hear it, and thank you for working with our city chief. We appreciate it.
thank you, Councilor.
Councilor Rotondo for a second time. Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. President. What I'm wondering is, when were you engaged? Because right now, this is, as far as I'm concerned, is like the horse is out of the barn. I appreciate you coming here and talking to us. We're going to vote on something that has what appears to be already put in stone. And there is no engagement by the council, which represents the community as well. And I understand that this is a commitment at the mayor's level, and I appreciate that process. But yet, the communication here is not on your behalf, but I'm just echoing that to the mayor at this point. I wish it would have happened a little bit before, so that this could have been a little bit different. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Mr. President, through you, with all due respect to the council, this is the first meeting we've had in a month. We engaged Mr. Ryan, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago. We had some conversations. And this was the earliest time that we could get Chief Ryan up in front. We're not asking for anything. This is clearly just a briefing and informational. I thought that it would be important for the City Council to hear from Chief Ryan.
Right.
And I also thought that it would be important to have some public engagement, in which we did as part of this process. Is we put out a questionnaire asking residents to give us some feedback about what they're looking for in a police chief. And actually,
did we do that in Spanish and Arabic as well as other
languages? It was on the city website, so it's
pretty limited.
There's an ability for it to be translated.
Thank you.
Yep.
Council Patch.
Thanks again, Mr. President, for having me a chance to speak again. I forgot, there was one issue. I'm also the chairman of the Public Safety Committee here, and I was led to believe that, one of the issues of Chief Caffarelli not being renewed is that the administration wants to go in another direction. So I don't really know what that direction is, but I just know that it was one issue, and I also, on conversation with the mayor, he asked me about my opinion, if I knew you, and I said, I've followed you through your career, Actually, I might have played softball against you at Arlington police, but anyway. Yeah. Oh, yeah, those gatherings, yeah. But the issue is that the one direction I'm worried about is SWAT, in the use of the SWAT team. I'm in favor of SWAT. I think they're very useful, and it protects the other police officers. And I believe that, as you know, Chief Caffarelli was very strong on SWAT. And I did some research with you, and I know Arlington you have a SWAT team.
We have a regional SWAT team.
So I just, and I know that, it might be an issue with like the SWAT vehicles, and I just want the people to know out there that those SWAT vehicles are very worthy for the protection of the police officer. It's not used offensively. It's more defense. And I think the way just the way the country's going, I said, I think it's very worth our while to keep a SWAT team active, and I just want that issue, I want to put that issue out there, that I know, like, you do not pick, the mayor's going to have to pick, you pick the picking order, whether he goes with that. He doesn't have to.
Right.
And are we going to be made aware of that picking order, or is that just going to be?
I assume the report that I provide to the mayor will be a matter of public record.
Right.
And to your point on SWAT, you're spot on. We don't occupy and take land. Our SWAT vehicles are purely defensive for police officers, not offensive. However, I would add that, if you have the trusting relationships built in a community, the analogy I like to use is it's like building a beach one pebble of sand at a time. And if we build a beach of support in the community, when we have those horrific incidents when SWAT has to be deployed and your next police chief has to stand back and choreograph the activities to make sure it's a measured response, you get support from the community. And I think that's why the mayor is very focused on 21st century policing and community policing, because that's how we back up our police officers and our SWAT team, if we have the trusting relationships in place.
I agree with you. Very good answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, councilors. Chief Ryan, I want to thank you for your time and your effort.
Thank you,
And
President.
I'm sure you get back to the mayor hopefully within a week.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the mayor will get back to us shortly
That's my
thereafter,
understanding.
right?
I've testified in court. I've been a police officer 32 years. This is the most challenging testimony I've offered in many years.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, honorable members of the council.
Oh, yeah,
Council
thank you.
President.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Mayor. Moving on to hearings, 17-138.
Hearing called is ordered on the application of Bellevue Revere LLC, 72 Squire Road, Revere, Mass., seeking permission from the Revere City Council to construct an 8-unit townhouse development on Lot 5, Bellevue Ave, and extend Bellevue Ave as a private way to service said townhouse development.
Identify yourself, please.
Good evening, councilors. Corey Rhodes with D'Ambrosio Brown, LLP, 14 Proctor Avenue in Revere. I represent the applicant, Bellevue Revere LLC, and its principal, Jamie Russo. This is an application for a special permit. This is property off of Revere Street at 0 Bellevue Avenue, where my client's proposing a small-scale project to put in 8 townhouse units. It meets all dimensional, setback, floor area ratio, height requirements of the ordinance, as well as all parking requirements. So this is just a special permit for the use. This was a subdivision that was originally laid out in 1944, so it's finally something that's coming into fruition. It is a good use of this property, I would say, versus what could be put there otherwise in terms of multiple two-family houses.
Okay,
Just to give you a sense of the project.
This is all the proponent side, yeah.
This is the current rendering of the project, to give you a sense.
Right.
So, this will be going to the zoning subcommittee. We also will be proceeding with the planning board also relative to the roadway construction. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
You want to ask questions now or subcommittee? Okay. Yeah, this is only a hearing. Yeah, just a hearing. Any other proponents for it? Any proponents against it? What did I say? Oh, geez, proponents or disopponents?
Hi, folks. How you doing?
Yeah, good.
My name is John Caparella. I own the house at 15 Bellevue. He has bought the home at 17 Bellevue, which is right next door to me. I just have a couple questions regarding this I think, craziness that is going to be allowed. Yes, that's a beautiful property. It belongs somewhere else. First thing I want to start with is, are these condos going to be for rent? Are they going to be for sale? Are they these townhouses? I mean, how many bedrooms are they going to have? In the allowed land that he has back there, it is absolutely impossible for 8 more units. And by the way, the whole street of Bellevue Ave has 8 houses. 8 houses on Bellevue Ave. He wants to put 8 more at the end. Now, there's already a parking problem on Bellevue Ave. Okay, I have called the police twice this week because of people parking in front of my driveway. Some half-wit the other day actually parked behind my car while I was parked there. Now, I mean, how can you live like that? It's really impossible. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. I wouldn't even be here right now if he was putting up 1 house, maybe 2 houses, but 8? And this is another question. This is the main question I have right now. What do the firefighters say about this, the fire department? That cannot be legal. If you guys come there, any one of you, after 7 o'clock on any night of the week, if I'm pulling out of that road, someone else can't pull in. God forbid if I ever broke down, there's a fire behind me. You have children on the road. I just don't understand how this even could be an option for this area. I really don't. So does the fire department have a say in this? I mean, what do they?
After this section is closed, we'll address those issues with the legal counsel.
Okay.
Okay. All the questions you have.
I just oppose and then.
Right. And then you listen to what he says, then you can rebut.
Okay. I have like 12 questions that I talked to my lawyer about, so we might be doing this for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I just don't get it.
Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with everything this gentleman.
The legal counsel comes up. All right.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Point of order.
Point of parliamentary procedure for the edification of the council. I believe each speaker has 3 minutes. Is that not our rule?
That's right, yeah.
Thank
He
you.
was gone, yeah. I don't want to say the 3 minutes, but we'll get your questions at the end when it goes to the council's questions. You have 3 minutes before the council. Okay, you've expired that.
Sir, don't worry. We're going to be asking you questions.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Offmer. I own 30 Ford Street, which is directly in back of this property. When I bought my home, there was a forest of trees in back of my house. A few months ago, I only knew this was taking place because I happened to look out my window, and we have a beautiful yard, a beautiful view, privacy, and the trees were coming down one by one by one. I know beyond our fence, we have a certain amount of space beyond our fence, so we went over there to talk to the guys who were cutting down the trees, and they didn't really want anything to do with us. They said, we'll give your information to the owner of, the land. They'll contact you. This happened about 3 times on numerous occasions. We never heard from the owner. This is the first notice that we've gotten about anything going on that property. We are concerned about, whether these are rental properties and our property value going down. We're concerned about traffic. Revere Street is horrendous with traffic as it is. To add all these units on top of that and more people, and it's just very congested over there. There's giant holes now where all these trees used to be. We've had rats on our street over on Ford Street. I don't know if when this digging started, if any traps were set or anything. We've complained.
Bellevue.
Okay. Yeah. We've complained about it. I've spoken to the mayor's office. All I was told was contact a lawyer and deal with it in court. Obviously, this land abuts our property. I'm curious whether there's any variances or how close to our property he can put these units. We're concerned about noise levels. And I think I've addressed everything. That's everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next person.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Natalie York. I live at 484 Revere Street. We've been there for our whole lives
between all the people that occupy the house. Parking has become an absolute nightmare on Bellevue. I've contacted the mayor's office more than once about it becoming maybe resident parking only, which we've gone back and forth a little bit. Not only do residents of Revere Street and other areas park on that street, you know, if these residents do go up, homes do go up, is the parking going to be, you know, what happens when they have guests? What happens when they have visitors overnight? Stuff like that. Also, growing up there, you know, we were told that was protected wetlands, the marsh. There's marsh surrounding Ford Street, Bellevue, you know, all the streets that follow Revere Street, there's all marsh wetlands that run parallel behind that. In fact, the trees that that woman was speaking of, we assumed were marsh wetlands. We didn't think you could build on that. And not to mention the 8 units that he is proposing, they've already purchased a home and have redone. There's already one home there. So is this an additional 8 units in addition to the home that's already purchased? So technically it's now 9 units. So it is a very small street. I don't know if any of you have been down there, but it is a very small street. I believe in total with my house, including that faces Revere Street and Bellevue, there's 8 units, but is, you know, they're small. It's not a big, you know, it's a dead end already. You know, we have kids, we have, you know, it was a very quiet street. These last few years, it's really, really become a problem. And the parking that my neighbor John was talking about, it's really become a struggle. I mean, you have resident people that come there and they park and leave their car for days sometimes. And I mean, these are just some of the issues that we're having right now, and this is without these homes going up. So, you know, these are all things we would like, you know, to see if it continues to build and they do get it. We need these things addressed because it's becoming a huge problem for lifelong residents that have been there. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
My name is Susan D'Antilio. I'm the owner of 2 Bellevue Ave. I am not prepared as I would have been because I didn't get the letter, unfortunately, that this was happening. And I've only known that there was something happening down there. I was hoping it was going to just be a parking lot for the home that's being remodeled, but I just learned at 10 of 6 from my neighbors about this meeting and what was going on. I bought my home, my first home, 8 years ago on Bellevue Ave. It's a beautiful home. The value, fortunately, has gone up slightly. I can let you know that the area and the city is declining horribly in this area. I can't get up and down Revere Street. Everybody from Revere Street parks on Bellevue Ave, so I'm fortunate to have designate off-street parking because the former owners converted part of the yard to be parking. I'm the driveway that everybody comes in and turns around in when they realize it's a dead end because they can't read the street sign. So there's constantly people coming in and turning around. So people are in front of my house on the sidewalk. I can't come out of my front door to walk my dog because people park up on the sidewalk because that's what they're used to doing for the house next door, which doesn't have a sidewalk, which is just kind of a ramp of cement. So they block my driveway, which I don't use, the driveway that goes to an underground garage. And I don't say anything because I realize that there's no parking around and I don't want to start any small petty wars. I can tell you that you cannot seem to stop overbuilding in Revere. You're just building apartment building after apartment building, and then when you can't fill them, you're turning them into Section 8 housing, and then you're building up more like Waterfront Square. You have to make a decision what you want to do with the city. Either you want to raise the value of the city and you want to raise the living conditions, or you want it to become, I mean, let's face it, it's going to start looking like, well, it does, like parts of Lynn and, you know. You have to pick what direction you want to go. On one hand, it looked promising for a minute with Waterfront Square coming in, and I thought, oh, good, they're finally going to start to try to raise the median income level, bring new renters in, and then I'm hearing that certain buildings that you can't even rent are turning into more Section 8. So the city is over-flooded. You can't get up and down the street. What else can we list? We're on a small little street that's a dead end. The one thing we have going for us in this area is that we don't have through traffic, and now you want to bring in... 8 more families. The other thing I will mention is that I will let you know now, the owner-occupied homes nearby are decent, but the ones that have absentee landlords that are just renting are horrible. I have it behind me, I have it next to me, it's just, renters are coming in and out, they don't take care of their yards. So if this is gonna be another trash, I mean, I have rats, I have to pay $300-400 every 2-3 months because of the rats that come up, because of to set the traps all around my yard. I mean, we should have a say in this just for a quality of life reason, for a value of our property and anything else that anyone on the street can. Yeah, it's so populated, just please. I mean, there are enough rentals in this city. We don't need.
No problem. Would anyone else like to speak on this?
My name is Jacqueline Arias, and I own 16 Bellevue Ave. And as my neighbors, I have the same concern about the parking. Also, it's a safety. Like a few years ago, after a big snowstorm, we have a medical emergency. The person, they have to carry the person out of the house to the ambulance because the ambulance couldn't get all the way to the end of the street because of the snow. So in case that they do build those units over there, how they gonna manage that? Like John said, if you go into Bellevue Ave, for another car to come out, you need to go to the side because there's not enough space.
Yep.
That's right.
Anyone else like to speak on this issue? Come on. Yep. Yep, forward.
Hi, my name is Dorothy Cotillo. I live at 21 Ford Street. I oppose it because the fire trucks cannot, it's a dead end, and the big fire truck cannot turn around. On 4th Street, we're very lucky that Turkish culture let them turn around.
Right.
And I think the firemen should be considerate in this consideration because they come right away when the main station is called. And I agree with the other people. They got homes, and everything has changed, and it's not fair to the homeowners. They've been there a long time. I hope you'll look into it, and I thank you all for everything.
Thank you for coming.
Hi, my name is Eleanor Vieira. I live on 4th Street, and I couldn't believe what I seen was happening. I can confer with everybody and agree with what everybody says. It is ridiculous. I left my house this morning at 8:30. Traffic was backed up all the way to St. Anthony's. It is just, how can anyone put what they want to put on Bellevue is just amazing to me. It's just a small little street, and it's just, in every place in this city, every place you find a little hole, you let someone buy it and they put something up. I mean, when is it going to stop? I mean, there's just, do you guys, well, whoever, look at the whole picture? I mean, the city is overcrowded. I mean, yeah. Somebody told me a couple of years ago, well, Ellen, if you don't like it, you can move up north. Well, you know what? I don't want to move up north. I want to stay here. This is my city.
Exactly.
And I'm here to support all of the people here. I live on 4th Street, but, I wish everyone would stop and think about, what's happening here.
We understand that.
Thank you.
Would anyone else?
Good evening. Eric Lampadecchio, 43 Tapley Ave, Revere, Mass. I think the residents have spoken, and it sounds like this project is not a good fit for the neighborhood. Please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents before we close this side? There being none, we close this side. We'll open it up to the councilors. Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I represent the area down there. I was down there actually this Saturday morning. I had spoken to Ms. Vieira, and she indicated to me that she felt this was a done deal. And I don't think it is a done deal. I would like to ask the attorney, if this is denied, what can this gentleman do down there on that property that he owns, legally, without any special permits or anything else?
As of right, construction would be 3 two-families.
3 two-families. So I think what the residents have to ask themselves down there, and I'm going to ask myself the same question, is would you rather have two families that are rentals, with having no control over who is moving into the neighborhood? I mean, I hear the word Section 8 thrown out here tonight. And rentals, you have no control. Now, I know this is going to subcommittee, and I'm going to look at it very carefully. And I know there's a rodent problem down there. When I was down there Saturday, I saw the debris and the garbage at the end of the lot down there. And my understanding is that the proponent has cleaned that up somewhat. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I don't know what was there before. I know there was a lot of trees down there and a lot of brush, and there could very well have been a lot of debris down there. But again, I think the residents have to ask themselves, do they want 8 condominiums down there, townhouses that will increase the value of the neighborhood? Or do you want 6 apartments? And it's a question you have to ask yourself. And it's a... Sir, I know you mentioned traffic. We have, if he puts... I think you're evading my question. No, I think it's an important question, and I don't want to argue with you, but I think it's something you have to ask yourself. I'm familiar with the area. I've lived in that area for over 50 years. I live right down on Ponce Street. I deal with the traffic every day.
Quarry Roads, John?
Mr. President, if I could, there are a lot of questions about this project, and I'd be happy to answer them. Even if I don't cover them all, I'd be happy to meet with you, answer all the questions you have. Anyone else in the audience who would have questions, I'd be happy to go over it. First and foremost, these are going to be sold. These are units that are sold. These are not rental townhouses. They are mostly 2-bedroom units. The roadway is actually going to be extended about 200 feet, and that is this is a 24-foot roadway with a 5-foot concrete sidewalk, and this is going to be reviewed by the planning board, and that's where the fire department comes in. This will not be done without the fire department signing off, and I do want to assure everyone that. Other issues that are brought up, my client did bait for rats for 2 weeks, did clean a lot of things out of that woods, old refrigerators, tires, things like that. There does seem to be a rodent problem at parts of Revere, and for some instances, you just can't help it. This property, all the townhouse units fall within the setbacks required by the ordinances. They meet all parking. These are off-street parking spaces. This is 1 space in a driveway. We have a space in a garage for each unit. It's 2 spaces for each unit. 2 bedrooms mostly. Mostly. I think there might be a 3-bedroom. 2 3-bedrooms. 2 spaces for each unit. How many bedrooms do you have, sir? Well, how many off-street parking spaces do you have?
I have 1 parking spot. I have no
Well, these spaces will... These are townhouses that actually have off-street parking spaces.
Mr. President, after tonight, this is going to committee.
It's like trying to stick 10 pounds of crap and 5 pounds.
Right, this is going to subcommittee regardless. Okay.
Mr. President, I just have one statement to make. I'm going to suggest that the proponent of the project, before this goes into zoning, have a neighborhood meeting down there, get all of these people at your neighborhood meeting, and make a decision. But keep one thing in the back of your mind. He can put 6 apartments down there as a matter of right. So you have to make a decision. Do you want condos or do you want apartments? It's very simple. We cannot stop him from putting apartments down there. He can do that as a matter of right. That's what I'm saying. Have a neighborhood meeting. Maybe he'd be agreeable to 6 condos versus 6 apartments. I don't know. That's between the gentleman here, that's the proponent, and the neighborhood. So I'm going to suggest to the proponent that you have a neighborhood meeting. You can have Attorney Rhodes present if you like.
Yeah.
And any of the city councilors that want to come down there. And let's make a decision as to what is best for the neighborhood. And to do that, the neighbors are going to have to do that. Now, I know, sir, that's not a rational statement. I don't think it is. We're talking about something that's going to affect your neighborhood.
Point of order.
Point of order.
So that's what I'm going to suggest. Have a neighborhood meeting with the residents and the proponent, and let's make a decision there, what the residents want, and that's what we'll support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Council McKenna.
No,
Moribito first.
Attorney Rhodes.
Yes.
I got a call from a constituent on Ford Street.
Okay.
Their backyard abuts the area. You literally can walk into the marsh. Now, at the roundabout where, at the end of Bellevue, there's tractors. I know you said they were doing some cleanup in the woods, but their concern was the creek that's there. The color of the water has changed, so I'm not sure if you can address this with your client. The color has changed. It also looks like all the branches are in the creek, and that sand and gravel has been thrown in there. So that is a major concern.
I think that's something we'll have to look at.
Council McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. Corey, I just want to know, is this wetland, is this considered wetlands?
I think as far as the engineers have reviewed, it's not wetlands.
No? Does it abut wetlands?
Does it abut wetlands? I think it does abut wetlands. But
It floods the, what? The flood zone, okay. So how far away is the flood zone or the wetlands from this, these units that are?
These units, as far as I've been told, do not fall within a wetlands buffer or the wetlands themselves at all.
Okay, and the other thing is, how big are these units? Because as councilors here, we, we're afraid of bringing in more kids into the school system.
I think they're mostly 2-bedroom units, and there were 2 3-bedrooms. That's
And
what I'm hearing
could
from
I
my
have the
clients.
size of the 2 bedrooms?
The actual square footage?
Square footage, please?
1,600, we think.
1,600 square feet?
Yeah. And
Two
again,
bedrooms?
these are units where people will be purchasing, so we're not looking at just rentals coming in. We're wanting people to invest in the community.
Right, I get it. Okay, thank you very much.
Council Rotondo.
Thank you. Actually, some of the questions that were asked regarding parking. Corey, how big is this lot of land?
It is 24,400 square feet approximately.
Okay. And the average square foot for a property down in that area is less than 4,000 square feet, correct?
I believe so.
So people are concerned about, and by the way, I want a moratorium in the city. So this is one of those unique circumstances where you really have to think about what you want to do. This has to do with both your street and the ability to put a fire truck down there now, which you can't do. I know that for a fact. You can't do that on Ford Street. And I remember being with Cataldo not being able to get down Ford Street and having to walk after parking on Revere Street. So that's an argument that plays no barrier here at this point, because correctly right now, you cannot put any apparatus down that street, period. Am I correct, ma'am? Exactly, because you got your breathing. And they go through the Turkish Center to turn around there, correct? Exactly.
Yeah.
So, no, but you know what? This is what we have to. Well, the meeting was started. This wasn't half started. No, ma'am, it's going to go to committee and people are going to speak about it afterwards. You're going to have you're going to have your opportunity to speak. But that said, my issue is that at present, the law, if you're developing that area, you have to have a turnaround.
The property, when we're, to put the property in, we do have to go through a bureaucratic process. First part, getting a special permit if one gets awarded. Then it's going to the planning board.
No, I get that.
Well, no,
I need to talk about the public safety aspect
No,
of
and
it.
that's where I am going. The next step is to go to the planning board, and before we can get this way approved, to construct it, it actually has to have that physical sign-off by the fire department, by DPW, by city engineering. And we expect them to raise some of these questions. We just need to take it in a step-by-step process.
And the reason why I bring this up is I went through this up on Prospect Ave, where it was a very similar situation. And you have to have the sign-off by the fire department in order to bring an apparatus down and around. You can't do that right now. You cannot do that. You can do it on Ford Street if you go into the Turkish Center and then you back out, and that's really hard. It's even hard with the ambulance. I've been down where you live, if you remember. That's right, but right now you can't do that. And the thing is that public safety issue is the main component that I have here. And with this project, you get a better public safety component. And that's one thing that you have to look at. The other thing is people were talking about, is it going to bring down your valuations? Now, you're talking to a guy who's been fighting for a moratorium for the past year and a half. The one thing I can say about the developer is anything that he puts up there, it really enhances the neighborhood. And I'm not here shooing for him, I'm just telling you the facts. If you look on Broadway, you look across the street from us. And if he didn't, I'd be berating him and tearing him apart, to be quite honest with you, without any problem. But the fact of the matter is, if he does build what he says he's going to build, either 6 or 8, I can guarantee you your property values are going to go up and you're not going to get Section 8. I can't say that about Ocean Avenue because you're talking about a bigger complex and people needing to fill a bigger area. So you might want to think about that. When we go into committee, you need to show up. This is where compromise is, folks. This is where everybody gets together and works together as a community. And if we're going to get angry at each other, let me tell you what's going to happen. He's going to take his ball. He's going to say, okay, the hell with you. He's going to build his 6 units, and he's going to get as much money out of it as he can. And that's the way it works, because that's his property right now. I say work with him. I say let's get the best public safety component out of it as we can, and let's increase the value of your property. That's the happy middle ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. This will be going to my zoning subcommittee. Councilor Haas, when is the date of the next city council meeting?
Next meeting, the 22nd, May 22nd.
Madam Clerk, is there anything scheduled at 5 p.m.? Can we schedule the next zoning subcommittee meeting at 5 p.m. on the 22nd?
So the next zoning committee will be May 22nd at 5 o'clock, before the council meeting. Councilor, that's basically any other councils. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know I've been awful quiet here tonight. You thought I wasn't here.
I doubt it.
Corey, the only thing I think might have been a good idea would have been to have a public hearing before this, but that doesn't mean it's too late, and that doesn't mean because my colleague to my right said it best, that the owner of this property has a track record that's better than most developers I've ever run into, and I've been here a long time. So everybody's concerned about the public safety aspect of this, and I know you can't build this without making that work. Correct. And so, I would just ask everybody, I know when you see something come to your neighborhood, the knee-jerk reaction is to go, I don't want it. But you always have to look at what can go there, and is it worse than what's going to be proposed? I dare say, I'm going to reserve judgment until the subcommittee, but I'm sure that what's allowed by right is much worse than what's going to be proposed here. So just keep an open mind, and I think you may be satisfied in the end. There's always room for compromise. There's always room to make some of these problems better, like public safety. So let's hold it and wait for the subcommittee and see what's proposed and see what compromises can be made. Thank you.
Thank you. talking about, I guess the fellow's name was John, that was here earlier. He had a couple of questions as far as rats. Did you bait the area prior to any work?
Yes, talking with my client, he baited for 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'd have to direct it to my client. We can get some records.
All right, did you start construction of the trees and everything else prior to obtaining a building permit?
I think that's just, yeah, that's just land clearing. It's not, doesn't fall under the same building permitting.
All right. You're going to work with the fire department to make sure? All right. How about parking? Is it all self-contained?
It is all self-contained. Each unit has 2 spaces. This is all off-street.
Will there be additional on-street parking for residents of Bellevue Ave on the private way, or is that a private?
To get down there.
I think my client's fine with that. Yeah, the whole side of the street.
Mr. President?
Right. Wait a second.
I mean, it's the whole street there, whatever side is going to be for parking.
So
but the other ones will have driveways and.
To get into the entrance, you're going to have parking on each side.
Now, I'm just trying to think. So coming in, you will have, each unit has its driveway
Right.
and garage, and I believe there's going to be a whole side that could be open to resident parking spaces.
Okay, and also, you're going to address the firefighters, the wetlands. That doesn't affect the wetlands at all?
No.
Okay, so one last question, Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you. It actually goes to the parking issue. Just remember, as he extends that road, the right-hand side won't have any parking because obviously it's his property. If you owned a property and you put your house there, you would have off-street parking, and then you would have an area where the what do you call it, the parking, the driveway would be. But on the opposite side, on the turnaround, you're going to have an area where you could probably put parking. So I'm sure that the developer and the fire department is going to want to put parking on that side just to offload it for everybody else. You might, in the end, you actually might gain spaces.
Yeah, maybe a whole 200 feet of driveway, almost, parking.
All right, there's one gentleman in the audience who has a question, sir.
My name is David Beglia. I live at 102 Elliott Road, apartment number 1. This isn't why I came down here, but because of public interest, I'd like to say something.
Sure.
If the man has the square footage to build what he wants to build, and if it's my understanding that he has to have enough parking for 1.5 cars per unit.
He meets that.
On property.
Right.
Okay? And I yield to the Councilor Rotondo that he mentioned off-street parking. Off-street parking shouldn't even, and I'm not knocking you for saying that, I'm helping you. I'm saying this, okay? If he has the land to build this, and he has already applied for it, Mr. John Festa is what's his exact?
Planning Department.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, I'm sorry, President now, but Mayor, Mr. Hess. In my eyes, I believe that he has the right to build whatever he wants, unless an amendment is made. Now, I suggest that you guys sit down and make an amendment. I mean, it's as simple as that. Sit down, amend it if you wish or not. It's not about can he do it or can't he do it. It's about does he have legal right to build on the property square footage that he has, the apartment that he wants, to house the people he wants, and park the cars that he wants. Right. End of story.
And that's what he says he has. Okay, anyone else would like to ask a question?
But I suggest an amendment.
Where? Oh.
But that's not my review.
Yep. And just come up to the podium when you're done. Okay. Again.
Sorry, Jacqueline Othmer, 34th Street. Since my house is the one that I said is directly behind where this is happening, and all this work has already been done about clearing out trees, and I have no idea if the surveyor's, report has been done, anything has been done where he has determined. I've seen the plot plan, I've seen all the public records. I have no idea how close to I don't know if this takes place during the subcommittee meeting. How close to my property he can build this property.
Right.
what my privacy is, how, you know, I don't know any of this.
Well, I think what's going to happen is Mr. Rose and the owner will meet with the neighborhood people down there.
Mhm.
You know, have all that information prior to the zoning subcommittee on the 22nd. I think that's the way we address it. So
Okay.
he should know what that is prior to the meeting.
21
All right?
21 feet off the back of the property. And the,
21 feet
21
up?
feet from the end of my property? It's directly behind the giant hole.
So this is 17.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
at any point here, it has to be 21 feet away. There's no structure within this red line.
Yeah.
Okay, so where the giant hole behind my fence is now is going to be filled in and?
Filled in, absolutely,
Okay.
no question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so one last question? Yep. Nope.
Again, my name's Natalie York. I live at 484 Revere Street. I know that I asked the issue of the wetland, and nobody here knows the answer to that, correct? Do you know?
May I speak? Point of reference?
Point of information,
I
Counselor.
can tell you
Where
that.
do I get that information?
Well, I can tell you can speak to the city engineer, but I can tell you that there's no one in the city, there's no one in the state that's going to get anything past the EPA. Nobody. So no matter how much building Attorney Rhodes is pushing in here, there's nothing that's going to get through the EPA. And our
That
city,
was my next.
yeah, our city engineer is very diligent with all of those properties, and I know that even the properties up on Washington Ave, abutting the creek, the properties on Revere Beach Parkway abutting the creek, the EPA is heavily involved in all proposed buildings in the
Because they're
state.
not, I mean, I haven't seen them on my street. I haven't
Yeah.
spoken to them. They're not here currently, right? And Mr. Moribito did make a reference to the creek and some of the damage that is going down, you know, and I just would like to find out if they were involved. And
Point
that
of
would be
information,
great.
Mr. President.
And my
Point of
second
information.
I think he has a question.
Either Nick Rystrom or Donald Chamara in the engineering department. If you were to go down or call them tomorrow, they can give you all that information.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And my second question was, how did we go from a single-family home that is now there, that he is doing reconstruction on,
Right.
to that, and then either a 6-unit or an 8-unit? There was nothing there other than the single-family home. I just don't know much about this, so how did we get
The
from
land was owned.
that to
Yeah.
either a 6 or an 8
Right.
unit?
It was, George, go ahead.
So unfortunately, there are pockets of the city that have small lots that are buildable lots. And the zoning allows you to buy the property and then utilize the lot that's next to it. I had asked the attorney earlier about how big is the lot. He said 24,000 square feet. And I believe the building area in that zoned area is just around, I think it's 6,000, John, you changed it? Yeah, 6,000 for a two-family. And then you'd have to have your setbacks and so forth. So that's why the requirement is that you can only build two families down there because it's within a 20,000 square foot area. And then the other part of the equation is, obviously 3 times 6 is 18. So what's the other 6,000 for? Your setbacks, the street, the turnaround, those are what the legal requirements have. Nothing that is going to be done is going to be done without certification by the Conservation Board, the Zoning Board, the Fire Department, the Police Department, us, and without a community meeting.
Awesome. And I thank you. And there was one more thing. You keep mentioning a turnaround. Is that on that little drawing that you have?
This is what I was trying to describe a little bit before. This is a long process. There are a number of steps to it.
Right.
If we don't get this approved, they're not going to build the road. So that's step 2 is building the road and getting that all approved. And that's where this would come into play with the planning board. They would talk about how this road gets built. We have the fire department make sure they sign off on it, the engineer, the DPW.
And if the road doesn't get built, the units come anyway?
No, no. You cannot have these units without the road.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Again, Attorney Rhodes and the owner will meet with you people. I don't know when, but he'll notify you. And he probably should send out a communication to you people, let you know when the meeting is. The next meeting of the zoning subcommittee will be May 22nd at 5 p.m. prior to the next council meeting. This closes this public hearing. Next public hearing, okay.
17-140, hearing called as ordered on the 139.
139.
Hearing called as ordered on the application of Adriana Galeano and Horacio Jaramilo, 52 Bennington Street, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to modify a non-conforming three-family dwelling by converting the basement into 3 additional bedrooms for expanded living area at 52 Bennington Street.
Any proponents at this point in time? Is the applicant here? The what? Yep.
Mr. President?
The applicant is not here. Any opponents?
Motion to close the meeting. How
Any
about,
opponents? Yeah. We went through public hearing already. No one's here. None. Now, any opponents? I said that already. No opponents. We'll close that section. Any councilors? McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know the applicant's not here, but I've heard from the neighbors, and they've told me that construction's already being done in this house. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard from a couple of neighbors that they've been taking things out, renovating, and I don't know if any permits are being pulled. I don't know how many parking spaces, but I'm totally against this. If I got to hear what they have to say, but 3 bedrooms is just.
It's a house that is a 3-family, and what he wants to do is create a basement that also includes 3-family. I personally think it's too much for the area, you know. George?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, understanding that they're putting bedrooms down there, who's going to police it? Who's going to say that they're not going to put something else down there? I mean,
exactly.
And at the end of the day, if you're telling me that construction could possibly be going on, I'd probably refer this to the building inspector and see if he could look into it. But if these people were here, it would be easy to talk to them and kind of figure out what's going on.
Joanne?
I would like to make, an addition that the building inspector go down and inspect the 52 Bennington Street to see if there's any renovations going on and if there was a permit pulled.
Mr. President?
Is that a form of motion?
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
On the motion, all those in favor? All those opposed? So voted. Councilor?
Bob, excuse me, Mr. President, my thought is also if we could send a communication to them in Spanish. They might, I don't know them, I don't know, just by looking at the names, they could be Hispanic, and perhaps they might need to have it in Spanish as well.
Leave it on the table? Yep. All right, this will go to zoning. Jessica Janinos. All right, now the next one.
17-140, hearing called as ordered on the application of Robert Inello, 727 Revere Beach Parkway, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to construct a second-story addition to an existing non-conforming structure in non-conforming use for the purpose of using the second story as a self-storage warehouse within the RB district at 727 Revere Beach Parkway.
Proponents.
Good evening again, councilors. Corey Rhodes with D'Ambrosio Brown, LLP, 14 Proctor Avenue in Revere. This is actually a two-part petition. We do have a zoning map amendment also as part of this. I will focus on the special permit as that is what has been called. Bob Inello's property at 727 Revere Beach Parkway has existed at this property since 1910 approximately. It predates the zoning ordinance by 20 years and has just existed for now over 100. It is a non-conforming structure, and he is seeking to add one additional level to this property that would be used for self-storage use. I want to be absolutely clear that this is a commercial proposal. There are no apartments going in or anything like that. if Bob ever had the inkling to put in apartments, he would have to come back to you before anything could get done because of how this property is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. He meets the actual parking needs for this type of use. It is very minimal with self-storage. You really don't get a lot of people coming and going. And it is really a kind of passive use for this property that he believed would have the littlest impact on Taft Street, which is the residential neighborhood in the rear of the property. Also, to be clear, there are no garage doors or entrances on Taft Street. It is strictly will have 2 fire doors that they're just emergency exits. There will be no coming and going out onto Taft Street, nobody parking back there because everything is geared towards the Parkway. We hope that you support this project. He's just going up to 30 feet. The ordinance would allow for him to go to 35 feet, but this really will do it, just doing 1 additional story.
Mr. Rose, have you met with the neighborhood people?
We did. We, at the urging of Councillor McKenna, we had I would say a pretty productive meeting. Got to air out a lot of, I think, past history about the property and really talk about what's going to go in there. And I think it was a productive meeting and still happy to answer any questions if anything else has come up.
Okay. After, right? Any other proponents for it? Yep.
Mr. President, Councilors, my name is Jim McGrail. I'm an attorney that represents the DeRico family from 150 Taft Street. And as the proponent, or the applicant mentioned, he was kind enough to meet with the neighbors, and they did have a good and productive meeting. However, there were some questions that remained unanswered, so to speak. And I think Councilor, the attorney just for the applicant just answered one of them when he said that the height would be 30 feet. So then the question is how high. One of our questions was how high, and the other one would be how big, how much square footage would this self-storage would be. And we would ask that the councilors, put in their decision conditions such as it will only be 30 feet, it will only be a certain amount of square feet, and it will only be for square footage. And that it would be explicit and clear in your decision as a condition that there wouldn't be any housing a part of it. Okay. That would be our request.
Let the legal counsel answer that.
We would be fine with that condition. And in terms of square footage in total, it's just going up for what the current footprint is. So I think at total, this was looking at, I think it's 16.5. If that sounds right. 8,000 square feet up and 4 down. And you occupy the other 4. Okay, so a total of, actually that would be a total of 16,000.
Thank you. And only one other question is, do they have a prospective tenant already? And so who and when would be the other 2 questions? Thank you.
As far as the tenants, right?
Yes, but
okay.
For the self-storage use, it is actually going to be run by Mr. Inello. This is a part of further investing in Revere. He wants to grow his business and thought this would be a good use of the property to really kind of invest in the community. He is using a professional contractor designer to do this storage, boxes and the placement and everything like that. It's Self-Storage Association is the name of the company, but the actual business will be run by Mr. Inello, the owner of the property.
Thank you. Any other proponents for it? For it? For it? You for it?
Again, David Viglia, 102 Elliott Road, apartment number 1. In regards to him having everything he has in his favor, and he should be granted it, there has been a motion by Councillor Rotondo for moratorium, okay? And in the interest of the best for this city, I think that the moratorium or
Can we speak on the matter,
least,
please?
Excuse me?
Can we speak on the matter before us?
Speak on the matter. You can speak later on this issue before us tonight.
Okay, this issue that I'm talking about.
Right.
To make sure that it's going to be done in the right, correct way, I think all avenues should be at least looked at before You guys decide on it. That's all I'm saying. I think it's okay, but that's not what I think. So in regards to whether or not he has the right to build on that,
Right.
my father's been in the building business all his life. You got the square footage, you got the parking, you got the right.
Right.
But in the development of this city, we've overgrown ourselves in some aspect of that word. So, in all fairness, I think all avenues shall and should be, at least in respect to this gentleman, looked at.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, you're next.
Nico Kostopoulos, 111 Mill Street. I have no problem with Bob putting in the self-storage unit, so long as a few things pointed out. We had a few questions such as signage, what color the building was gonna be, where his dumpster is gonna be, and when is construction gonna start? How long is construction, gonna be going on for? I'm sure they have a target date. What company's doing the construction, so we can look at their track record as a city, because unfortunately, I see a lot of projects going on in the city, and then some of the contractors, they just keep sloppy sites. They're not welcoming to the neighbors. When you have a neighborhood that's residential and business mixed in, it's a careful balance of, we live there, they don't. But we want to be Bob's ally and get behind him on his project. It's his property. We want to see him invest in the city and do good, but we also want to make sure as neighbors we're protected. Parking on Mill Street and Taft Street is tight. We've already been up here other businesses
many times
in the area, and we can't afford. Bob's agreed.
Right,
we can't afford to have any other cars parking on Mill Street.
Right.
That's my main concern. Keep up with the property. I know me and Bob have talked about keeping up with the property, and he seemed to have jumped on that, which I'm happy about. But again, if we could just get a few things answered, when's construction going to start? How long do they anticipate it's going to be going on for? And make sure there's no impact to the neighborhood.
Okay. Corey, can you answer that?
Mr. President, just a point of information.
Point of information.
This will be going to the zoning subcommittee, which again will be on the 22nd at 5 p.m. Typically during public hearings, it's for proponents, opponents, brief discussion, and it's an opportunity for the attorneys and the residents to write down any questions they may have, get the contact information, gather everything that they need. Typically, they don't go an hour long. I think the last one got a little out of control. So I'm hoping that we can, be diligent on this.
You don't want to answer some questions, when it may start?
It's should be starting in about 6 months. Construction, they assume, would take about 6 to 9 months thereafter. He wants to use the best construction company he can. That's really in his best interest too, to make sure this gets done, and he can, because this is where his business is, so he wants to get back in there. I believe the dumpster is on the Parkway side on the side of the building in the front. And I think that was, if there are other questions, he has 14 parking spaces currently. With his current use and this new storage use, it would only be 10 required.
Thank you. Any other proponents for it? You've enclosed that issue. Any opponents, people who may be against it? There being none. Any councilors? Joanne McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Corey said, we had a forum, community forum, and we had, there was a miscommunication, so we didn't have all the residents there, but we did have a number of residents. I would like to put an amendment on this. I know when it becomes in front of the council that no apartments can be built as long as he owns it. And the other suggestion that I would like to do is have a forum with the community before he starts construction, and maybe see a rendition of the property, what kind of face of the building is going to be presented, the color, as Nico said, the signage, and just to put everybody's questions at rest and just answer all those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors? There being none, this goes to zoning, May 22nd at 5 o'clock in the evening. This meeting closed.
17-141, hearing called is ordered on the application of Robert Inello, 727 Revere Beach Parkway, relative to an amendment of the zoning ordinances of the City of Revere. Designation of property known and numbered as 727 Revere Beach Parkway. The zoning amendment will be from Residential B District to the General Business District.
Mr. Rhodes.
Councilors, Corey Rhodes, D'Ambrosio Brown, 14 Proctor Avenue in Revere. This is the second part of the application that I was telling you about to change this property from Residential B District to General Business to District. I think this should show also that we do want to keep this a commercial property. This has been a commercial property since 1910. And for some reason, when it was originally set out, it was put in a residential district. And as Bob has tried to rent that current other condominium unit that is at the property now, he's gotten every commercial tenant coming in and pushing back saying, you know, I have a lot of issues that this is in a residential district and the city could at some point come in and push us out because it's just for houses and apartments. As its pre-existing use, these ordinances and statutes were set up so that over time they would get rid of the commercial use that's on a residential property. But we think this is a fitting use at this property, having commercial there. I think the city likes commercial, doesn't want to see more apartments, which was expressed tonight. And I think this is just to go and clean up the ordinance, and we hope you support us.
Any other proponents for this change? There being none? Okay.
Nico Costopoulos, 111 Mill Street. I'm just curious, so if we do change that to commercial, what does that leave us open to in the future? 5-10 years, if Bob wants to sell the property, what can go in there? Is that going to change dramatically?
Right.
You know?
They still have to go back to the council for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Attorney Rhodes?
It would, the things that it would, I guess, allow for at this property, the most traditional ones are like an office use or, you know, you have a dentist or something coming in like that. If anyone would try to do some sort of residential at this property, they would have to come in front of the council. So if Bob sold out at some point and somebody came up here to put apartments in this building,
So let's say, okay, it does get commercial, zone commercial, what difference does that make? Like, in other words, down the line in the future, what can go in there? Is that zone strictly commercial? Does that allow a McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts? I'm not sure.
There's a host of uses under the ordinance. I mean, it is things like retail and offices, and what else is under there? I mean, it's that general business type of use is what they classify it as. But where, you know, we do want to show that this property is a commercial property. And again, Bob is happy to put that condition on there, wants to make you guys feel secure. And this isn't a small thing for him. You know, he was actually considering leaving Revere, selling the property, things like that. But talking with the mayor, talking with the councilors, they do want him to stay here.
Right.
But putting this unit in, the self-storage, things like that, it's a significant investment. So he's really not planning to go anywhere. He wants to be here, and he'll be subject to any condition like that.
Thank you. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick question. Again, Jim McGrail representing the DeRico family from 150 Taft Street. Just a point of information. So if the city council were to grant him, the applicant, a special permit relative to the self-storage, and then also approve this change in the zoning ordinance, could that make the self-storage aspect of his proposal a moot point such that he could do something different as a matter of right from that self-storage?
No, I think we're going to grant him a permit to do the self-storage, period.
I understand that, but hypothetically speaking, let's say for the sake of argument you do, and you also pass the ordinance, would he then be able to push aside that's not not exercise a special permit and do something else as a matter of
The
right.
special permit is per se, it has to be that in that location.
Point of information.
Councillor Keefe?
Down the road, he would be able to apply for a special
Apply for it,
use
yeah.
or new use to that building. And like Attorney Rhodes mentioned, there could be something like retail, even a restaurant down the road.
Right, so
But the good side is they are eliminating the potential for a residential unit there.
That's
But
understood.
yes.
I just wanted to clarify, and maybe the applicant can speak to this, that he could technically walk away from the self-storage aspect of this tomorrow and do something completely different.
Exactly. Councillor Janino?
This is just a point of information. I think that, going back to that last question, the residents in that area should feel pretty safe about the fact that this is a non-conforming structure. So
Right.
since it's non-conforming, almost everything, or everything that goes by this property has to come to the city council, since it's already a non-conforming use. And especially if it's going to be a non-conforming use with a special permit, it's like a double safeguard about what's going to have to come before us, really. And Mr. Inello's been great to work with and really put everything before the council, so we appreciate that.
Any other proponents, people for it? This closes that section. Any opponents? There being none, I close that section. Councilors, Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've already said what I had to say,
Okay.
so I have nothing else.
Any other councilors? There being none, it's going to go to Councilor Janino's subcommittee on May 22nd at 5 p.m. All right, let's close that issue.
Thank you.
What's the veto of the mayor?
Item 17-122, this was vetoed by Mayor Arrigo, that the mayor be requested in the case of all power outages to provide status updates via the reverse 911 system to the affected neighborhoods.
Place and file. Any opponents? All those in favor? All those opposed?
Committee reports for the
Yep.
zoning subcommittee.
Councilor Rotondo.
Mr. President?
Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening at 5 o'clock, the zoning subcommittee met to discuss several issues on our agenda. The first item was a motion presented by Councillor Rotondo that the City of Revere have a 3-month moratorium on large-scale residential construction in the PDD 1, 2, RC 1, 2, 3, GB 1, and TED zoning districts. This was kept in committee. The next item on the agenda was a motion by Councillor Rotondo that the current residential zoning be changed so that new construction of properties proposing 20 or more units be required to have 2 parking spaces for each unit within the city. This was also kept in committee. The next item was a motion by Councillor Rotondo that the city amend zoning ordinances to mandate a minimum of 25% of all units built in Revere be affordable housing, whether these units are affordable, rentals, or for purchase. Further, that 10% of these units be designated for veterans. Additionally, that the remaining 15% be dedicated affordable for residents 55 years and older. This was also kept in committee. And the last item on our agenda was a motion presented by Councillor Haas that the mayor request the city planner or site plan review committee to draft a zoning ordinance for the city council establishing a 6-month moratorium on billboards to allow the city to conduct a zoning study on the placement and or reconstruction of billboards, also to include electronic billboards. This item we had a lengthy discussion on. It's something that has come before the council several times, and now with electronic billboards being an issue, it's something that we're definitely looking further into. Mr. O'Brien with the city is going to be working with the council to draft an ordinance for this, and this was voted out unanimously favorably by the subcommittee, and I'm going to ask for a vote on it this evening. The zoning subcommittee will meet next on May 22nd at 5 o'clock.
Roll call on the motion regarding billboards. Councillor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Moribito?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Rotondo?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Zambuto is recused, and Council President Haas?
Yes.
Yes, the motion is granted.
Mr. President, also real quick, in addition to my report, I forgot to mention that Councilor Zambuto was recused from the discussion in subcommittee as well.
Right. Councilor Anzoni?
Okay, hello. Communication from, for the contract of Bay State Wind Supply water meter installations. That is for the installation company that started this project 2 years and 10 months ago. According to the Massachusetts General Law 30B, a contract in a city or town in Massachusetts cannot go beyond a 3-year period without the approval of their council. So what we're asking is that we extend it for another year. We don't think it'll be another year, but rather than coming back all the time, but hopefully it won't be another year before we get all these meters in. There's approximately about 1,400 meters out of 11,600 that haven't been installed for a number of reasons. One of the major reasons is the non-responders. People will not set up appointments and let you in their house and allow you to change their meter. However, in the City of Revere, it was mandatory that you change the, since it's an enterprise fund, that you change your meter into this new meter so that we can, the city can automatically read the water usage in each home. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is some have lead piping in them, whereas it's very iffy to remove the meter from the pipe, and it's old plumbing, and then the homeowner at that point is responsible to have that brought up to a standard where we can put the meter, the City of Revere can put the meter in. And also there's a curb stop issue where the shutoff valve for the water does not work, and if we go to the curb stop out in the street, the city goes out to the curb stop in the street, it's not able to shut off the water because either it's buried, hasn't been cleaned out, and for a number of reasons. So those are the three main reasons why we're asking the Bay State Wind Supply, who won this bid on a competitive bid almost 3 years ago. So we're asking the council to extend the contract by a year to June 1st, 2018.
That's because the extension of the water meter system.
Water meter installation, that's correct.
Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you, Mr. President. No offense to you, George, or anybody. I'd like to get a letter from the City Solicitor to kind of dictate whether we're in compliance and so forth, just for my own purposes. Thank you. Before I vote on this.
Councilor Guanasso.
Well, the important part of this, Mr. President, is that this approval will not increase in any way the cost of the action. So
that's correct.
This is at no additional cost to the taxpayer, right. And it's a job that's incomplete. Mm-hmm. I don't see why we have any hesitation in going forward. We need to complete the job. It's a fair game playing field for all those who did do what we requested. Now there are individuals that have been being a little delinquent in their response to the city and shouldn't penalize the rest of the city who conformed. So I think this is absolutely in order. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else? What do you want to do? You want to?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Roll call.
Mr. President, do we have 100% assurance from our legal counsel that we are in compliance with 30B? Yes or no?
According to what George says,
I talked
yes.
to the City Solicitor, Paul Capizzi, before we did this, and he was in agreement with this.
Thank you, George.
Roll call.
Shall the City Council approve the extension of the Bay State Wind Supply contract until June 1st, 2018? Councilor Janino? Councilor Janino? Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Moribito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Wake up.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotondo?
But of course, yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Haas?
Yes.
Yes, the extension has been granted.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, then I have a second communication here.
Yep.
For the establishment of a capital improvement stabilization fund, and then also a transfer from free cash. The capital improvement, there are two ordinances that needed to be added to our city ordinances as revised, as amended rather, revised city ordinances, and it states here, one, to establish a capital improvement stabilization fund where a number of projects with the Collins Center have been identified with the assistance of the department heads across the city, and then they've been prioritized beyond that. And the report is in its pretty much final stages and will be submitted to the city council for its approval and review. So looking at it, the first step is the feeling was, and the recommendation was, that we start a stabilization fund which we put money into, and that for capital improvements, so that we show we have a commitment to do the capital improvements that are necessary over the next 5 years, the 5-year plan. Further, that we've identified funds out of the, we had $4.4 million of free cash certified for our fiscal year 15 and 16, and we felt that it was, the administration felt that it was worthy to put in $2 million into the account to start the fund. So the first ordinance is one to actually establish the fund, and the second part of it is that on a yearly ongoing basis that we will put 20%, similar to what we do into our normal stabilization fund, 15%, but in this program it's 20% into the stabilization fund, capital improvement stabilization fund, so that we may continue to fund the projects on an ongoing basis. The capital markets during our phone call with, our conference with Standard & Poor's when they did our evaluation for our bonds, and they gave us a positive rating on our bonds that we recently had in March. I'm trying to think of the date, but I can't. But it was the beginning, middle of March, and we told them we were doing this, and they felt very pleased that we're taking this stance and taking this and progressing in this manner, so that we are taking on and we have a funding source for our capital improvements rather than something hitting us in the face. This is actually a second step. The council previously had seen the first step of the capitalization fund, the capital improvement program, and now they're on, this is the second one where it is for the next 5 years and also a funding source to it. So if there are any questions.
Is this
Councillor
require a
Keefe.
public hearing?
Thank you, Mr. President.
That requires a public hearing, correct?
Yes.
I just had one question to Ms. Anzoni, through you to Ms. Anzoni. This fund that would be created, would this, and this was, you're talking about infrastructure improvement, would this be inclusive of personnel or just for the infrastructure alone? There's no personnel, right?
This is not for personnel, this is the infrastructure itself. A number of things in buildings, and a number of areas, a number of pieces of equipment, and mostly probably building, I would say.
Thank you.
Building-related programs.
That was just my curiosity if
Okay.
it was inclusive of personnel. Thank you.
Right. No personnel in this.
Thank you, Mr. President. George, you said this is going to include equipment also, purchase?
This will include some equipment in here too.
So that means we won't have to bond anymore?
Well, you will bond, but the money from here will pay the bond back.
Okay, now will this be in addition to the Chapter 90 money?
Will this be in addition to the chapter money?
Sidewalks and roads.
It will be somewhat, some in there money being put in there for.
I see the mayor want to sneak up.
Hey, here you are.
Just very quickly, thank you, George. Very quickly, we will be rolling out, so the transfer is from free cash into a cap reserve fund, which we're creating. The next step will be along with the budget, the operating budget, we will come to the council with a capital plan, a 5-year capital plan that will be a rolling 5-year capital plan. And it'll actually be based on this initial deposit and future deposits in the capital reserve fund, so that capital plan can actually be executed, so that you'll see line items for different items that are actually going to get done in a 5-year plan. Rather than having we can put together a 5-year plan of everyone's wish list, which is something that I've gone through, But we want to make sure that if we put a capital plan together, it's things that we can actually include. And part of that, I can tell you right now, is streets and sidewalks.
Also equipment,
Also equipment,
Also
yes,
equipment.
yes.
for Public Works.
So the
police,
Public
fire.
Works equipment that we bonded money earlier this year for,
Right.
there is other equipment that will be included, but the bulk of the Public Works equipment has been addressed in that bond that you all passed a couple months ago.
Well, I hope it's, like you said, a capital plan.
It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a
capital plan
rolling,
for
so
their
the idea
equipment
is
also.
have a rolling 5-year plan. It'll be a 5-year plan. Each year, we will reevaluate, and, priorities may change throughout the 5 years, but you'll see, you'll see what goes out in terms of what gets spent, and then what the priorities are for the next few years.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Thank you, George.
Other questions? Charlie? Mr. Patch?
George, I don't know if you can answer it or the mayor, but the $250,000 for the quiet zone, can you explain that a little bit?
So I'm not sure if it's in your packet, and I can get this information if you don't have it, but I think it was 2011, the city had made an agreement with the federal government that we would, in order to have the whistles stop so the trains that go through Oak Island, the whistles would blow. In order to have the whistles stop, we agreed that we would make that a quiet zone. We did not do that. So it's been 6 years. It's something that's hung out for a while. The federal government has said, hey, we're going to start blowing the whistles again because you haven't done anything. So we are now appropriating that money to be able to do that work. There are a couple of things that have to be done, and I think there's more detail in the request. But that is something that goes back prior to my administration. But we're trying to. A couple of those items you'll find are items that we had found that were hanging out for a while. The Pines Fire roof was something that was done by a contractor, was not paid for over 2.5 years. That contractor, as you could imagine, would be very unhappy. The contract that person had was illegal. There was no money appropriated for that purpose, but the work was done. Contract was signed anyway. So we're now paying a back debt that we owe, and so that ideally that doesn't happen in the future. But we want to make sure that and a couple of these requests were things that we wanted to clean up because we knew that they had been hanging out for a while. Another is the $200,000 in sidewalk repair. That's again a 3-year backlog that I inherited of sidewalk requests that we want to make sure that get done. We're going to put that money out in the street so that people can see where their tax dollars are going and make sure that it goes back to the residents.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Powers?
Thank you, Mr. President. The $250,000 for the quiet zone is very, very important, and I'll tell you why. There was a fatality down there several years ago, young child, and as a result of that fatality, the trains coming through there were blowing their whistles constantly, all hours of the day and all hours of the night. And there were a lot of people down there that felt this was being overdone with regard to the whistles and the whatever they were doing. And so the city at that time agreed to make some improvements down there. And the commuter line agreed to stop blowing the whistles as much as they were. There was a negotiation there. So we're at a point now where we have to do those improvements down there or face the problem down there with the noise once again, which certainly the residents of Oak Island do not want and would not be happy with. So I urge that we definitely vote on this. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Point of information.
Point of
I'm not questioning the need. I just wanted to know what it was for. That's all. But a good explanation, John. Thank you.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just want to bring up on item number 3 and the $100,000 for the Safe Routes program. This is a program that the Mass DOT, we started working on this 5 years ago, and this $100,000 is our share for infrastructure work, if I'm correct, Mr. Mayor. But the Mass DOT is giving us $1.3 million. So we're making, for $100,000, we're getting new streets, crosswalks, new lights, traffic light signalization at Dick Street, and handicap crossings from Centennial Ave all the way down to the Garfield School, Dick Street, Garfield Ave, North Shore Road. I know Mr. Veglia is a very active participant in getting handicap ramps at all our intersections, and I see it's going on up in Malden Street, so I hope we can get some more down in the Ward 2 neighborhood, down around the schools, so the kids can walk safely. But there's a nice program. We worked on it. There was just a public hearing on it by the state last week. We are planning on having a local meeting down at the school sometime hopefully in the next 3 weeks before the end of the input period to explain everybody what's going on, so all the neighbors know exactly what's happening. So that's where we are, and just FYI for everybody. Thank you.
Roll call. $17,155, right?
Council President Haas, just to confirm, 17,149, that was a separate communication.
Right.
And everyone was talking about 17,147. So 17,149 was, are you sending that to a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. So 17,147, you wanted a roll call on that?
Roll call.
Shall the City Council approve the following transfers? $250,000 to the Capital Project Quiet Zone Fund, $200,000 to the Sidewalk Repair Capital Project Fund, $100,000 to the Garfield School Capital Project Fund, $20,500 to the Point of Pines Fire Station Capital Project Fund, $18,000 to the Street Sweeping DPW account, and $1 million to the Stabilization Fund. This is all from the General Fund free cash.
Exactly. Free.
Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Moribito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotondo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes, except for the 100,000.
Is recused except for the Safe Routes to School $100,000 transfer. And Council President Haas?
Yes.
Yes, the transfers have been approved.
Let's suspend the rules and take up 17,155. Thank you, George.
Mr. President,
Yes, George?
my understanding is it's dealing with the Showcase Cinema and the Carnival, correct?
Yeah.
I have a similar motion. I figured just to either roll it in or withdraw it. It's up to you.
Okay. Let's take this. Okay, read the motion, 155. Yeah.
City Council Motion 17-155, motion presented by Councilors Moribito and McKenna, that the mayor request the License Commission to ban Fiesta Shows from obtaining a license or permit to host a carnival at the Showcase Cinemas due to the consistent violence that has occurred this past week and years prior.
Councilor McKenna. Councilor Moribito.
So on Easter Sunday, shots were heard throughout the city, whether you lived around the Showcase Cinemas or you watched it on the news. Innocent bystanders, whether you were at the movies, going to the movies or the carnival, they feared for their lives. They were taking cover under cars. Stampedes of people were running across the highway to take cover in Stop and Shop. Parents who had children at any of these venues were living in fear at that moment, not being able to get a hold of their child because there was so much chaos. Unfortunately, this isn't the image we want broadcasted on our city. This isn't the news coverage we want. And sure, there are many variables to what could have happened, but when you're looking at the variables of what could, variables of what could have prevented this, one of them is one of the ways you do that is looking at the history. And when you look at the movie theater and look at how many incidents are really there, and they're open 360 days a year, whereas you have a carnival, a venue that is only here 3 weeks a year. And every year that they're here, there is a major incident that occurs. At one point, one of our offices were attacked. Another one, there was gang-related activity, and just a recent shooting. I just think an incident like this not only creates awareness, but it sheds light on some of the negative issues in that area, especially those that occur annually when the carnival is here. So I think we should start the conversation. So let's do this.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm all about the children of Revere and youth sports, and I understand that Fiesta Carnivals gives back thousands of dollars,
$2 million.
$2 million in 20 years to the city to support our youth sports. But when a carnival comes into our city and violence comes with it, 2 years in a row, then we need to examine it. My concerns are the carnival that night was overcrowded, whether gunshots came from the movie theater or they came from the carnival. Pandemonium happened that night. People were panicked, which caused a stampede. People were jumping over fences, hiding under cars, and my friend's 5-year-old daughter was pulled away from her family and found 10 minutes later. We are so lucky that no one was seriously hurt or killed. If we had 6 police officers there and the carnival comes back next year, I think we should have 10 police officers there. Security should be heightened. Before I take a stand on shutting down the carnival, I will wait and allow the Revere Police to complete their investigation, the licensing board look at the evidence and make their determination and recommendation, whether this carnival needs to be shut down or not. I'll agree with any of the requests that the licensing board has. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Moribito.
I just want to add, this motion has nothing to do, or it does not reflect upon the management at the carnival or the McCarthy-Terfoni committee. They've been compliant with the police over the years, and they adhered to their security requests. So, but I think this is definitely a conversation we need to have. So, as Councilor Rotondo mentioned, maybe we should intertwine the motions. So I'm going to follow it up with Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you. Councilor Zambuto first, then Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you, Mr. President. And listen, I share the concerns of my colleagues. However, let's not exaggerate. It's not every year there's a shooting, and there happened to be a horrible incident, and it was very scary, and I agree. But I'm of the mind that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You want to shut down all the sports in the city, go right ahead. I think we can do this with better security. You're never going to stop drive-by shootings. You got gangbangers out there. We're talking about sanctuary cities and protecting gangbangers. And that's, who do you think drives by and shoots at a car? I mean, let's be realistic about this, So this carnival has, over the last 20, 30 years, we're talking millions of dollars that go to our sports teams. 2 million, whatever it is. I don't care if it's $1 million, but it's money that we don't have for the youth sports. And that'll go away, and I don't want to see that happen. So if it means we have to get 10 cops, as my colleague says, fine. Whatever we've got a capable police force, and they know what the best way to protect the citizens are. So if they tell us we need 8 cops or 10 cops or they have a strategic plan how they want to do it. I'm sure they can make this work. You know, I'm involved in something in Boston right now that's the biggest security thing you could ever imagine. And so you can do anything if you let the proper people, and that's law enforcement, look at this, evaluate it, and make it work. The last thing I want to do is shut this down because how much good it does for our youth. So let's keep cool heads. Let's let the professionals tell us how we can make this safer, and let's do it. Thank you.
Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you. I'm going to withdraw my motion and just add that we have the, as it kind of reads, and if you would all amend it, because I believe it's what you're stating right now, is that we have the chief of police come back. And one of the things that we need to do is have a reevaluation of their security profile and have them take a look at what went wrong, or if anything went wrong. Unfortunately, I don't know if we know who the assailant is. More importantly, you know, it's probably very hard to catch someone who's just driving by and either shooting a gun or shooting a gun at someone. At any rate, being a father looking for my daughter that day, it was you know, a little terrifying. But that said, it's always Amanda. And with that said, you know, we really have to do something here, because if not, someone will get killed. You know, you're running the numbers now, and this is not the first time something's happened. It's not the third time. It's not the fifth time. It seems, and I'm sorry I disagree with you, Tony, it seems like every time they're here, there's always a beef. There's always, well, I'm calling from my experience, and there's always something of that nature. So at the very least, we need to have a better security profile, whether it be more police, whether it be more electronic surveillance, I don't know, a combination of both. So, thank you.
Point of information. Point of information.
Mr.
President, through you. I spoke to the chief earlier today, and one of the things he said is, Carnival is enclosed. There's no cameras whatsoever. Having the open space, obviously the parking lot where a lot of the kids will go there, meet up, it poses a potential threat. He did say we need poles, cameras on poles, increase the law enforcement officers that are on site, but he said it's the it's the nature of the beast. And as far as incidents that occur, he told me there is at least one major incident that occurs there every year. And there's a lot of gang activity that's there every time the carnival's there.
Patrick Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know this will end up going to committee in further conversation, but you know, I won't be voting on this. Just so everyone's aware, I happen to be one of the president of Revere Pkwy, and I'm a board member of Revere Youth Baseball and Softball that both benefit from the McCarthy Triphone Fund, and we're very appreciative of that. That being said, every single year we have to hear the same story, whether there's a riot, a fight. This year happened to be gunfire. Whether or not it's including, it came from the carnival or not, it doesn't make us happy. And every year as a board, we always question, is the money worth it? So, you know, without making any snap decisions, I know we're going to have plenty of time to deal with this before next year or before the planning process, but when you look back at the BAC, the BAA that runs the Boston Marathon, you know, I can tell you that security costs have quadrupled since the marathon bombing. And now even more now that they have to block off every single street in fear of having cars ramming into pedestrians. Whatever this group does do, and I know that the McCarthy Triphone Fund is a stand-up group of individuals, and the people that run Fiesta Shows are a stand-up group of individuals. There has to be a better way to go about doing business in the city of Revere. Right. We are not Topsfield. We are not some suburban community up in New Hampshire that doesn't have the outpouring of residents from Boston or from neighboring towns. We are Revere, and and the carnival, for whatever reason, draws a certain crowd. Not the most sightly crowd. I have to be honest, I haven't been to the carnival. I haven't been to the carnival since I was a young boy that was brought there. Because I just don't, I'm not a big fan of the people that it brings into our city. Again, doesn't mean we shouldn't have any events. You know, we can have many events, and it's how we deal with them. It's how we use the local authorities, whether we use the police department, city hall, whatever it may be, to have the right events. We have a Revere Beach Sandcastles Festival each year. For the most part, we find a really good way of dealing with that. That draws millions of people each year for a week at a time. Maybe there's a time limit. Maybe there's only it's not open after a certain period of time at night. Maybe it's not open during the dark hours after 8, 9 o'clock. It seems like that's when all the issues arise. Maybe there's twice the amount of police. Maybe there's a substation down there for the 3 weeks that the carnival's there. I wouldn't be willing to close the door either. And again, like I said, I won't be able to vote on this because, truthfully, I'm on a board that benefits from this carnival. But there has to be so much more thought put into it moving forward in order to make it right. And that's all I would hope that would happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I did talk to the president of the McCarthy Trifoni Foundation today, and she did have a couple of recommendations to go forward for next year. And one of them, as my counselor on my right said, that they were looking at to close the time. Because they said families, you know, bring their children, but after like 9 or 10 o'clock, they're gone, and then we get, you know, you get a different element that comes in. So they were looking at to close it a little bit earlier to you know, stop the violence, because the violence seems to happen after the families leaves. So that's a great recommendation, and I hope the licensing committee takes that into consideration. Thank you.
Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think there's only one thing that we can all agree that this carnival brings to the city, and that's rain. But other than that, there's really no definitive statements that can be made. You know, I'm curious to see what the police department has to say. It's a very large property. The movie theater is right there, which also attracts a similar age group. I think that there's a lot of questions that can be asked regarding this issue, but I think to act hastily would be foolish. I think that they've been a good neighbor in the city. They had property on the beach for a very long time. They've supported our youth for a very long time. And I think that it's definitely something we can look at and hopefully find a solution to, whether it be changing the hours or, you know, just working out security issues that I think definitely could be improved. But I have a lot of faith in the Revere Police and a lot of faith in our city and working it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ganasso.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd be foolhardy to suggest that we have major concerns. My review of this over the past several years is, yes, some of the, and quite a few of the people who attend the carnival, unfortunately, are undesirables. And I had the occasion to make a visit with my wife. We went through there. It was a drizzly night. And I saw a lot of people that I was sort of fearful of, that I would not bring my grandchildren there because I'd be wondering about their public safety, their safety. So we're torn here for some of the things, and you can't weigh the element that the 100,000, 200,000 people that go to the sandcastles. That's, to me, is more of a family-oriented type of project, and it's one that brings a different element completely to the area. But we have to bear in mind, too, as we had the occasion this past Saturday to go in for the opening of the Griswold Park and to see how many youth were there in attendance, ready to participate in sports of all nature, softball, baseball, it was just a wonderful venue for our kids to enjoy. All of us know, and we experience that, we know as a city, we can't afford to do that for our kids. We can't afford it. So we're talking out of two sides of our mouth if we suggest otherwise, unless we're going to come up with the funding and say, okay, no more carnivals. We're going to support our youth activities. We cannot, as a community, afford it. So what do? There's, like they did with the marathon, major tragedy occurred there. Do you stop the marathon forever? You take within itself, and if the carnival so suggests that they will increase and pay for all unnecessary police presence, whether they be in uniform or not, then we can go forward with a plan for our kids and the safety of the public at hand. We want to make certain that all of those visitors who participate in going to that carnival are safe. To suggest they were safe this year, I don't think so. I think we had some members of the police department there, but I don't think we had them scattered about the whole park. We had them in one congregated area. We have to disperse them into those police officers so police visibility and their presence is known. We can't shut down everything that's good for some portion of our community for the lack of support for that, and have all these other hoodlums control what we do in our daily lives. And yes, there are hundreds of people who told me, close down that facility. But these same hundreds and hundreds of people didn't come with me Saturday morning and see what I saw Saturday morning. That's all our youth, and that their funding source is primarily from this carnival. Unless we can come up with a financial mean to do that, then, you know, then we have no alternative but to negotiate and have a great conversation with these individuals to make sure that public safety is the #1 factor in our community, and make sure that every patron that goes into that carnival is safe and protected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council. Anyone else? Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. I kind of agree with several of the councilors here about you have to kind of weigh the issue. I've been familiar with the Trifoni McCarthy Fund since my kids were little, playing Pop Warner and down McMackin. And through the years, what they've done, the old stadium, putting up the lights, I mean, they've done so much for this city. And this is their major function of raising money. I think we put them pretty well out of business if we don't find an answer here. Yes, the security definitely can be improved. You know, myself, I worked that detail many years. When the weather, of course, Councilor Janino brought up the weather. It seems like it's always, when they come, it's either raining or snowing or
That's a good sign.
You know, and what happens is, I don't know if, like I say, I've been away from it for 9 years, the detail working. But back then, even back then, if the weather was bad, they'd cancel some of the police officers. They'd, you know. So I think if everybody gets together with the, first of all, we got to find out if it really happened. With I still haven't got a final answer if it happened. They got concrete evidence that it happened at the carnival, at the show, or what, you know. The show attracts some pretty bad characters too. I mean, so you know, I'm not defending the carnival. I mean, I haven't been there, like I say, in 10 years. But it really hurts me if we put an end to the funds that come in from the Trifoni and the McCarthy organization. It's really helped the city tremendously, and we got to come up with we got to take our time here and really look at the situation, and hopefully we can come to a conclusion where we can work together. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other Councilor? This afternoon, I received a call from John Flynn, president of the Fiesta Enterprises. John indicated to me that Chevy Weinstein called her up, the owner of Showcase Cinema, and indicated the offense started in their building and moved out to the front perimeter of the cars. That's where it started. It had nothing to do with Showcase Cinema. But again, it brings up an issue, right? The area. There was a rough, I forget the name of the movie that was there, and a lot of, I hate to say punks, went there, and it's amazing that they have guns. It's crazy.
Point of information, the movie was in progress when this occurred.
That's right. Doesn't matter if it was in progress, they could have left. Maybe they wanted some excitement, you don't know. And I think really to ban it, I think we have to analyze it. They talked about additional police officers. I guess there were 7 police officers on the payroll that night. They'll indicate they'll put more on there. But again, I'm going to send
There were
this.
2 to 4 point of information.
3 to 4, that's not bad. There were the police in the area. I mean, I don't know why you're so,
Oh, I'm just stating the facts that I got from the chief today.
yeah, all right. And the thing is, I'm going to send this to Council Patches. Huh? I know. I'm going to send this to Council Patches, Public Safety Issue, his committee, and then we can address it as we go on. Now the councils are all done. Come up and identify yourself, please.
Yeah. Good evening, Council. Anthony Cogliangelo, 105 Newman Street. We cannot blame the carnival for what happened. We can't. They don't advocate violence. They try to have a family atmosphere, a good place to be, and if bad people show up, that's really not on them. So I don't know, there was some combining of the motions tonight. I don't know if the banning of the permit is still on the table, but if it's going to committee?
Committee.
Well, then, if the banning of the permit is, then I'm a conditional opponent of it. I say conditional because I have 16 years in large capacity venues, working in Boston. I worked at Club Lido, which is Wonderland now. They have police details there. We had 3. And still, we had 20 people on staff for a 1,400 capacity venue. 20 people. People stationed at exits, people stationed at, places where people convene, people, and people like me who worked the door, and then there were people roaming inside. And I think that if we already have a police presence there, why not hire a security team? Why not hire eyes and ears to roam, to be positioned in certain places? All of them need radios, all of them need earpieces. It's not about, security is about prevention and peace of mind for these people. And also response time. We can't stop everything. I don't care if you have 40 security members in that carnival. You can't stop everything. I don't care if you have 40 police officers in there. You can't stop everything. But your response time can be greater, and you can prevent larger scaled problems from happening. Another thing that I suggest is putting metal detectors at the beginning or the entrance. That may, to some of you, send the wrong message, but having a metal detector there ensures there won't be guns, there won't be knives. Not to say that those things were in the park to begin with. And have people stationed there in case you need to check bags, to do pat-downs if the metal detector goes off. It's about safety. The other recommendation that I have is to lower the capacity of the event. Make it more manageable. 1,000 people is a lot of people, and they're not treating it like a venue. They're treating it, everybody come in, have a good time, you have police officers there, that's great. There's not enough of a security presence there for 1,000 people. I've been going there for years. There's not. So they need to drastically change their security standards there. And I think there should be city ordinance that states that any venue that has a certain capacity should have security, should have a certain amount of security. We need, it's necessary for people's safety in the city. And as a business owner in the city, I would hope that I would have a fair shake to make changes to my business. If I was in violations of a law or an ordinance or some kind of a rule, I would hope that I would be pressured, and we should apply real pressure to them to make these security changes. We should. So I'm against banning the permit. We can't do that. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Wayne Rose, 189 Coolidge Street. I was here December 19th. I told you, the city council, about the guns on the street. It's not fair to blame these people. You guys are to blame. There were shots inside the projects, the carnival, on Sergeant Street. It's happening all over the city. It's not just the carnival. You can't blame these people.
It's all over the world.
No,
I mean,
it's
really.
coming here. I told you I seen an AK-47. You didn't want to listen to me then. Now we got shots everywhere. What are you going to do now? Thank you.
That was tough. Yeah, push the button. It's on.
Hello? David Veglia, 102 Elliott Road, apartment number 1. My first question is to Mr. Zambuto. Did I hear him say that we get $10 million? Could you $2 million? And did I hear the officer back there say there's 1,000 people go there? Okay, so can you do the math for me? That means they spend something like $2,000 per night there? Okay, I don't believe that. I heard Councilor Moribito say that every single year that there is a major incident there. I've been living in the city all of my life. It rains just about every single year that it comes there. I do not recall an incident of this magnitude being there. And correct me if I'm wrong, Officer Patch, if you will, other than this one. I'm not doubting you. And I believe that Joe Caffarelli, the Honorable Joe Caffarelli, told you the truth when he said there's incidents there. I do like what Councilor Joanne McKenna said, give him a chance. But I also like Ira having the castles on the beach. And my proposal, if I can, I don't know if I can propose anything, I'm just a citizen. Try and move it down there at the same exact time. Now, who pays for these people that surround us with the security? It should be from them people that pay $2,000 a night, which I don't know if that's true or not. But they should pay for that. Secondly, after 9/11, we're all scared. And if we run scared, they win. And I'm not going to live in a city or a country like that. So my proposal is this. Discuss it amongst you guys. I can't discuss it. I'm not a counselor. But if I were a counselor, I would get you all together. I would say, listen, if it's a little dark down there, we can't put 20 there. There's 1,000 people there, whatever. Let's move it to a different place. We have all of Hurley's donated land there that I'm sure that the Hurley that lives on, I believe, North Shore Road, would be glad to donate it for the night, a week or two. And we would be able to consolidate all of this officer right here said, and you could get more. You could get more people down here to patrol it. And not just people in uniform, but people that are dressed like myself, like Mr. Rotondo, like yourself, Mayor. I'm not talking about I have the answers. I don't have the answers. I do have this. I want to protect my little ones. I want to protect the other ones. I don't want anyone to get hurt. And I think you're right. I think that you have valid points. I think all of you have valid points, but the valid point is going to be get rid of it. I don't agree with that.
No.
I agree it should be moved. And if
Well,
you can come up with a better one, I mean,
we're going to
please
address
let us
that
know.
without question.
And
We're going to
again,
address
that's
that.
not the reason I'm here. I will let you know I'm here at
Okay,
the end.
Yeah. All right, that's it for the councils. And one last thing.
Anthony Cogliandro, 105 Newman Street. In the interest of stolen valor, I'm not a police officer, sir. I'm not a police officer. I just want to make that clear to everybody here. Yeah, oh, stop it, Mr. Councilor Patch. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I know that's kind of crazy to take up your time, but I felt terrible. All good. Thank you.
All right, this is, no one else wants to speak, unless you want to speak. None. I'm going to move this to Councilor Patch's Public Safety Committee. Charlie?
Point of information.
Oh, okay. You ladies want to speak? All right. Yeah.
Jane D'Angelo, 387 Prospect Place, Revere, Mass., President of the McCarthy Trifone Recreation Committee. I just want to ask the City Council to please keep in mind that we have had carnivals in this city for 40 years. It's at least 40 years. We've had up to 3 carnivals a year at one point. We've run out of places to have the carnival now, and Showcase has been gracious enough to allow us to bring the carnival there. We don't give $2 million a year. It's spread out over the 40 years. We do see, as Councilor Guanasso said, the gratification of these young children in the city. One of our mottos is that there is no child left behind with sports. If a child has no means to pay, it's taken care of for them. No child should be denied the right to play sports. Keeps all of our children off the street, involved in something beneficial. Yes, it does bring not the best quality of people, but you have to take the good with the bad. So I think that as collaboratively as a group between the City Council, the Mayor's Office, Fiesta Shows, and the Police Department, we can come up with some way to keep the carnival active and continue to distribute this money.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Moribito.
Jane, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come up here and address that. As I said before, it's nothing against the management, the committee. I had so many calls the evening on Easter Sunday. I'm sure you can sense the urgency on this matter, and it sheds light on some of the issues that occur in that area when the carnival comes. And as a council, we can't just turn a blind eye, and we have to have a healthy conversation about it, even though you do so much good for the children of our community. I just want you to understand that this did not reflect your good deeds, or it does go noticed.
Charlie,
so,
you want to
thank you.
leave the 22nd before Jessica's meeting?
If I may, Mr. President, we want to know if the 22nd, I think we probably should wait until the investigation is over. I mean, I will check.
With Joe, yeah.
We don't want to let everyone know the investigation is ongoing.
It's ongoing.
I've been getting updates, and
So
it's a
whenever,
continuing.
Right.
Please, if you could inform us when
it's
over, then I'll call for a meeting at the.
Super.
Public.
So this is going to Public Safety Committee. Charlie Patch. Thank you.
Okay. Communications 17-142, communication from Jon Santeusanio, requesting to speak to the council regarding Councillors Keefe and Rotondo. (17-143), communication from the mayor requesting a residency waiver for Tab Benwait, Public Safety Information Technology Professional.
This will go to Appointment Subcommittee.
Appointment Subcommittee. Yep.
Council Order 17-145, communication from the mayor requesting an amendment to the revised ordinances of the City of Revere relative to purchasing.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is adopting the new rules around purchasing that have been, it was a bill passed by Governor Baker in the Municipal Modernization Act in an effort to try and speed up our purchasing time and purchasing process. We are looking to adopt the rules that have been set out in the Municipal Modernization Act.
Any discussion? Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I've been working with the mayor and his staff on this for several months, and the issue coming about is the repairs of the city vehicles in a timely manner and the size of the vehicles that we have. Right now, we have a $5,000 limit. One vehicle can go out for repair, and I'll use the Vector truck from the city yard. One repair can be $10,000 to $15,000. And in the process they have to use now is go out to competitive bid, and it takes almost 3 times as long to do that. What this does, this allows us to spend up to what, about $20,000, $25,000, Mr. Mayor.
So there are different layers and levels of
Right.
25,000. Right now, I don't know the specifics off the top of my head, but it brings levels up to 25,000, 50,000.
So it allows things to move faster in the city yard, the school departments, to get their buses fixed, their trucks fixed. So I think by changing our ordinance and accepting this chapter, it'll make a better business and due diligence for the city. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Keefe.
I just have a question through you to the mayor, please, in regards to this would not require them to get the 3 bids, correct? Or they wouldn't have to
No,
go?
we would still be required to get bids.
Okay, so
Right.
that's...
So it's just the levels at which you have to get bids, written bids, oral bids, and go out to a full bid would be increased.
Okay. And my curiosity was just making sure that, we'd still be protecting from unethical behaviors in
Absolutely.
purchasing,
There's training that will go along with the increased limit ability.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, just an FYI, we still have to follow the rules of 30B anyways.
absolutely.
So, it's just they give us a little more leniency.
Order to a
Thank
public
you.
hearing? All those opposed? All in favor? So be it.
Council Order 17-146, communication from the mayor relative to owner-occupied residential tax exemption for senior citizens.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. As all of you are very well aware, I had campaigned hard on the issue of residential tax exemptions. This is a first step in making that happen. What we're looking to do is replace the 41C exemption, which is the exemption right now that allows senior citizens in the city to get $500 off their tax bill with a qualification of an asset limit of $40,000. So only approximately 63 residents right now, senior citizens, are taking advantage of that exemption. We're looking to replace that exemption with another exemption, which is 41.5C, which allows for the city to have a residential tax exemption for senior citizens. And that would be a 10% residential tax exemption. And that would not have any asset limit to it. So for those seniors who live in the property that they own, they would qualify for it. I want to stress that this is a first step in terms of residential tax exemption. We have learned a couple of lessons from some other communities that have tried to roll out residential tax exemptions, and just recently the City of Boston had an issue where folks who did not qualify for an exemption were getting the exemption. We don't want to see that happen. I think that this is a good opportunity to have a kind of a pilot program where we take care of the residents in our community that need it the most, our seniors. I've always said that I would prioritize the seniors, and we're going to do that to allow them to stay in their home and take advantage of what we can. So the process in adopting this 41.5C is that I'm coming before you tonight to get it on the ballot in November. And the process is such that the residents have to vote on this ballot initiative, and we would be able to enact it upon approval of the residents of the voters of the city. So with that, I hope this is a good first step in terms of what we're looking for, in terms of making sure that we are keeping seniors in their homes. We keep it affordable for folks, because I think everyone understands and knows that right now our community is pretty hot real estate wise, and the values of properties are going up and up and up, and it becomes more and more difficult for people to stay in their homes. So this is our first step in making sure that we can have people who have lived in Revere for a very long time continue to live in Revere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If you have any questions,
Yeah, Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, all we're doing is basically switching one exemption for the other at the state level and asking by law, because this particular exemption, you need to ask for a waiver normally at 70 years old, from what the Department of Revenue states. This is, you're giving up $500 versus 10%, is it? The average home, and I'm sure Steve can look at MLS and then correlate it with the voting list, that the average property value for someone 65 and older, my last calculation of that was just around $5,200. And that's on the high end. So I don't know if there's a benefit here. And I'd like to see what the analysis is, because my analysis is going to be different than yours. You have access to the assessors and as well as the census. I can't do a census tract assessment, number one, because I think that your numbers are probably better than what I get online. But that number, you know, might not benefit everybody. It actually might hurt people.
It would not hurt anyone, Councilor.
Well, I don't mean hurt in a sense.
It would not hurt anyone. It would be a 10%.
Well, if you're in a condo and you're paying $2,500,
it would be a 10% residential tax exemption for all seniors.
So if you are currently in a condo and you're paying $2,500 for your mortgage, and you're getting a $500 exemption, and then you switch to a 10%, you're going from $500 to $250. That is a detriment.
Not necessarily.
Really? I don't know.
Point of information.
$250 is a big difference.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. Am I correct to say that under this plan you proposed, more people are eligible for?
That's correct.
Whereas
So
the previous plan, there was a limit
the
on the asset.
No, that's the issue isn't only about you expanded. It's what the law states. In order to get one exemption, 41C, you have to give it up for another. That's
I
what it states.
understand, but
you
we're
can't
giving
keep both,
it up.
can you?
We're giving it up. We're giving it up for a program that's.
Listen.
We're replacing 41C with 41.5C.
Right. In order to do that, under the law, you have to take it by vote to decrease it to 65. Is that not correct, Mr. Mayor?
We have to go to the ballot to enact 41.5C.
And that's what you're here for, correct?
That's what I would.
And we don't have a meta-analysis on who it's going to affect. And that's all I'm asking for. Now, if you want to go and shoot blankly, go right ahead. But a good third of our seniors, and you can ask the people that live at the St. George and elsewhere, their taxes are a little bit less than that. Some of them are a little bit more. So who do you want to affect? I want a meta-analysis. I want people to know exactly what they're getting, who's going to lose, who's going to win.
No one's losing, Councilor. That's what.
If you live in a condo and you are 65 years old, and that condominium, and you're currently getting you're 70 years old and you're currently getting a $500 rebate, right, under 41C, and then you go to 41C and a half and you only offer 10%, and you have a cost for your mortgage, for your taxes at $2,500, what's 10% of $2,500?
That's, Councilor, you're
missing of information. There's no condo on the beach unless you live in a penthouse that averages.
If you live on Ward Street, the average property value there is what? $126,000, correct?
How much?
$126,000.
On Ward Street?
Ward Street, 75 Ward Street. Take a look at the condos down there. Take a look at the condos.
Yeah, so that would be $1,750. That would be.
And do the math.
Councilor, just 10%.
But it all depends on the asset location,
Councilor, just
do the math.
To give you some insight, the reduction, the 10% reduction is on the
entire. You didn't do the 10% discount because you can't afford to.
Councilor,
please.
Let him speak. Come on.
Only when I get you know something? I have no problem with someone speaking, but don't try to bamboozle me with baloney.
Councilor, I'm not bamboozling you at all. I'm saying that this is a first step. If you listen, I'm saying that this is a first step. And when we do the residential tax exemption for the entire city, which is what we're going to do, because I did say we would do it, this will be on top of that. So if we do a 10% reduction for everyone in the city, senior citizens will get 20% off. This will be on top of that. The fact is that this exemption is applied on at the median amount of what all properties are worth, the median assessed value. So the percentage that comes down isn't based on an individual person's property. It's based on the average property in the city. And the fact is that 63 seniors right now take advantage of that $500 abatement. We will have over 1,000 seniors who will take advantage of a 10% reduction with the 10% exemption. Thank you.
Again, all I'm asking for are the numbers.
And I will be happy to provide them to you, Counselor. I'll be happy to provide them to you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Councillor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Rigo. Mayor Rigo, I was pretty satisfied originally, and I understand that there has to be more discussion, and I appreciate you bringing this forth. This isn't a matter of politics to me. This is the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
And I'm very happy that this first step, and I look forward to seeing more in regards to providing some relief to our seniors. So thank you very much for starting this process.
Anyone else? Councilor Guanasso.
Mr. President, I think it's a great idea. I think that it's a step in the right direction, and I like the inclusion of everybody, where before there was only limited to 63. I think the increase in numbers makes it more identifiable with our whole city rather than a select few. And I think you're in the right direction. And yes, there are condos down the beach, believe it or not, that pay $5,000 a year. So, you know, there are situations where they are going to vary, but you have to come up with a norm, and the norm is 10% for everybody, and I think that's about the most fairest thing you could possibly ask for.
Right.
And I think you're doing a step in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Councilor. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the 10% reduction is based on the average assessed value of everyone's property. Everyone's property. So it's not on your individual, property that you say 250. Well, it's only 250,000, so it's only $250. That is not going to be the case. The fact is that it's going to be the average assessed value of all the properties in the city. 10% off of that will be applied to over 1,000 senior citizens.
Right. That's the aggregate amount of everybody. Right. Anyone else? Councilor Janino, I mentioned you already.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's a great motion or communication on behalf of the Mayor's office, and I think that it's a great first step in the right direction. This has been an issue that's been spoken about for a very long time, and I think our seniors get hit often, with their tax rates, with their water rates, and if there is anything that we can control, we should take full advantage of it and start working in that direction to try to alleviate costs anywhere that we can, because these are the people that have lived in the city usually most of their lives, been paying taxes for the city for 10, 20, 30 years. So if we can help them out where we can, I think it's well served. Thank you.
Good. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I fully understand what you're saying. It's not the individual tax bill, it's the average assessment for the entire city. And that certainly, anytime we can take into consideration 1,000 or 1,200 more senior citizens in this city, myself included, then we are doing a service. We are doing a service to the residents of this city that have labored all of their lives, bringing up children, paying taxes, building a neighborhood in the city. I think anytime we can do that, it's a plus 1,000%. And I thank you and I applaud you, Mr. Mayor, for that innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor, I compliment you on the great communication.
Thank you, Councilor.
Actually, it affects a lot of seniors in this city that are really struggling, and we want to keep them here. Thank God for the old people.
Right.
We're getting there. We're there, pal. But hopefully, but again, it's got to go to the vote of the people, and hopefully they'll enjoy. The younger people will have a little heart. Thank you.
I think it's a great motion as a councilor. It affects the masses of the people. Everyone's involved with it. and just the taxpayers have to vote for it in the next municipal election. I think it makes sense without question. Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you. Actually, I got to apologize to you, Mr. Mayor. I read it wrong. You are 100% correct. I apologize.
Hey, all right,
Thank you.
all
Thank you,
right,
Councilor.
all right. Well, we have to vote on this now?
Get the defibrillator. I think he's going to pop off.
That's on YouTube, Councilor.
Yeah, so what?
Okay. All right.
Oh, hold on here.
Roll call, roll call.
Shall the City Council adopt Clause 41st, C and a half of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5? Councilor Janino.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Moribito.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotondo.
Definitely, yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo is absent, and Council President Haas.
Yes, without question.
Yes,
Thank
the provisions have been accepted.
Thank you.
Council Order 17-150, motion presented by Councilors Powers and Haas, that the mayor contact the owners of Wonderland and make arrangements to meet with the City Council relative to the parking situation and to discuss the special permit that's read expired in July of 2015.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's interesting. We're discussing 5 minutes ago, we're discussing a little tax relief for our senior citizens. And on the other hand, there's an organization in the city that's probably taking in well over $1 million a year and maintaining a blight on the city, and I'm speaking about Wonderland. It's a disgrace, that property down there. And I know we all want so badly to bring in development down there. And I know the mayor has been working toward that end. But in the interim, they're operating a parking lot illegally. It's very clear what the law says, and I'll read it just so we all understand. Commercial parking lot or structure may be allowed in the PDD1, PDD2, or CB district by a special permit granted by the City Council in conformance with the following minimum criteria. The parking lot structure shall only serve municipal parking needs associated with parking demands of the CB district. They had a special permit down there, and we granted that special permit, the City Council did, but it expired in July 1 of 2015, which means that the licensing board in this city cannot grant them a license to park cars down there. Now, I've spoken to some people that are in the rent-a-car business, that are in the automobile business, and the estimates they gave me, I'm going to cut those in half. They said around $10 a car. Well, let's just say that it were $5 a car and they're parking 800 cars down there on a daily basis. You're talking about $28,000 a week. You're talking about $1 million a year and more that Wonderland is raking in while they're maintaining that blight, that building that's dangerous, that's unsanitary, and it's a nuisance to this city. In addition, they've got a county ditch down there that's loaded with phragmites, tires, weeds, you name it, that's affecting the drainage in the Sagamore-Shawmut Street area. And I'll name one building in particular, a young woman down there that has a tax business, which is strictly legitimate. It's an office and home. She can do that. But she can't even get tax clients into her home because the water was 6 or 7 inches deep. this past month on several occasions, not just once, several occasions. I think, Mr. President, we have an obligation to enforce the parking regulations down there. So I'm going to ask that the mayor communicate with the owners of Wonderland and have them come into a meeting. City council can be present, the mayor can be present, the building inspector, within the next 2 weeks. And let's talk about getting that building torn down. They certainly have the money to do it if they're taking in $1 million a year. And let's talk about maybe some revenue sharing coming into the city. Maybe we can use some of that revenue sharing to help out the senior citizens that paying not only their tax bills, but their water bills in this city. So I'm asking that that meeting be set up within the next 2 weeks. We can have it up here. We can have the mayor here. We can have any members of the city council who want to attend. And we can have the building inspector, the zoning officer of this city here, and maybe even some members of the licensing board if they so choose to attend. But let's stop the nonsense. Let's stop allowing Wonderland and an LLC in New York City to rake in hundreds of thousands of dollars on a yearly basis and give nothing back to the city of Revere. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rotondo.
You know, there's probably about 4,000 cars down there at the very least. I'm told by the security person down there that it's Avis, Budget, and I believe another entity, allegedly. And my thought is, someone's making money here. They didn't come up before the council to get the appropriate pass off, so to speak. When are we going to learn? They haven't done anything with that building there. It's already transferred hands. Yeah, great. I got a phone call from Budge Upton, you know. So what? Tear the damn building down, will you? Clean up your act.
Right.
And cut the you know what.
Right.
I'm sick of it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Guanasso.
From what we hear, Mr. President, is that it's almost like a chain of cars going in there all night long.
All night long.
Alarms going off. Right. People being disturbed in the immediate area and beyond, because when the trade wind blows properly, all the end of Ward 3 can hear it on Revere Street, and I'm sure most of Ward 5 can hear it. That's quite disturbing and alarming to all of the community we represent. And this is a pure disregard and disrespect to our community. I would think it's behoven us. We can send down the building inspector tomorrow to have all those cars removed. It's a violation of the zoning. And those cars could be moved within the day, get them out of there, until they come to meet with us and resolve this issue. And I don't think the issue is going to be resolved by merely paying a fine and getting a license to do this. We don't want this.
No.
We don't want this type of service because we're trying to improve the property, not bring it down. And I think all this does is adheres to bringing the property down and being disrespectful to the neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also saw that they're parking cars across the street in the Wonderland shopping center.
Yeah.
I mean, the old Stop and Shop there.
That was
75.
75 cars were issued by the last License Commission last week.
If they, you know, shame on Wonderland. But I mean, I went down there just last week for like the first time in a long time, and I came up. I went the back way to avoid Broadway, and I went the back way, and I came up out of Ponce Street, and I couldn't believe it. I have never seen so many cars. They started right at the where they used to park for the Wonderland.
Right across. Right
across. The whole lot was full. And you know, as chairman of public safety, I mean, it's about time that building too has got to come down. we got to bring that up again because, you know, kids are going to be playing out in the summer. That's a very dangerous place, and, you know, we just got to clean it up. I mean, I still don't get why they're giving out permits across the street, but, you know, it just adds to the problem. Vandalism, they talk about vandalism of cars. I mean, what they're going to stop, not go across the street? But again, it's time that we, I think we put our foot down and we finally get some results down there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Moribito?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not big on rumors, but what I've been told from a numerous amount of sources is a couple of the car dealerships have an agreement with the owners, and they're allowing them to store their cars there.
Right.
So that's something we might want to look into as well.
We're not even included. That's insane. We should be included. Right. Councilor Novoselsky.
Mr. President, I just want to give everybody a FYI on Wonderland Marketplace and what happened down there. It has nothing to do with Wonderland Dog Track. Nothing. One of our local dealers, not a used car dealer, but actually select airport parking. Ran into a problem last month with one of his vendors, and he asked permission to park them till the end of April. Hopefully they should be gone any day now. But he ran into a problem, and with the vacation week, that's his biggest time of year during any vacation week and the holidays. So he went to the License Commission, asked permission to park 163 cars there till the end of April.
2 months, 2 weeks.
Which was, at that point, it was 3 weeks, and hopefully they should be gone soon. But he did have a contract with the new owners of Wonderland Marketplace. There was no underhanded dealing. It was a straight contract to park their car there on an emergency basis only. It's not a permanent thing. So
Point of information. After you're done speaking, I have a point of information for you, that's all.
You were done, Arthur?
No, if I may,
Continue.
I'll yield to
You
the
said
point.
after the fact.
Thank you. But, you know, just so you know, there was nothing underhanded, has nothing to do with across the street, and hopefully they should be gone soon.
Right.
They were supposed to do 163 cars.
Yeah.
Allegedly, there were 210 cars there, but that was every car in the parking lot, which also included people visiting Marshalls and Staples and the post office and the hair cuttery and also Big Lots. So they did say 163 cars. I know people went down there and allegedly counted 210 cars, but whether or not all those cars belong to this particular vendor, I don't know. But all I know, he told us 163 cars. That's what he got approval from the License Commission several weeks ago. Thank you.
Point of information, Mr. President.
Okay,
go ahead. Mr. President, it's not certain whether that property is zoned properly for that and to allow commercial parking. And the other part of it is they would require a special permit before the Revere City Council. So it isn't up to the whim of the owner of the property to say, well, you can park your cars here.
Yep.
Because you can't, because it's not properly zoned. And this is a fact, it isn't just a guess. And so they're improperly parked there, and I understand, and I saw the commission's meeting in reference to this particular site, and he said he would leave by April 30th. Well, today's May 1st, but I did go down there, and there were a lot of cars there, and what they're doing is they're circumventing the parking arrangement for all those businesses that are occurring there. They're taking away spaces from them. But again, it's not legal, it's not commercially zoned for parking, and if they want to get a permit, they have to come before the council.
Right. Thank you,
No, I got
Councilor.
a point.
Councilor Patch.
I just want to clarify that I didn't say there was, I know they got permit, they went to the license board, got permits.
exactly.
I didn't say they did anything illegal.
No.
I know it was, now that I just got some new information, maybe we should look into it some more. Thank you.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Mr. President, just a clarification. And I was involved with it from day one, and it was unbeknownst to anybody that they had to come to the council of the zoning. And that's why they went on their own to the License Commission, thinking that's where they had to go. So they weren't trying to pull anything. It was just very innocent, and they were wrong, and they were told that they had to come to the council if they want to continue it. So that's it.
Councilor Rotondo.
Not related to the issue previously spoken about, but related to Wonderland. If I'm not mistaken, they're out of compliance because they don't have a license to operate.
Right.
Am I, Madam, through you to Madam Clerk, am I not correct that they
Should
have
be
not?
out of compliance.
It's my understanding of the special permit expired.
Yeah.
So at this point, I mean, I don't see why we just don't call G&J and have them tow every single car the hell out of there. You know what? That sends a message.
Yep.
You call that guy up. We ask the city solicitor and ask the mayor, and if we're within our right to do so, then we give him a nice little call and say, you need to fix this today, or we're going to call G&J and anybody else and tow them out, and that's it.
It's a good thought. You know, as you know, Council Powers and I put a motion in well over a year ago to address the building. Kids were getting hurt there, the police were down there, people were drinking down there, and the facility is still standing. It's amazing that the owner of the property can't reduce the price and tear down the building. It's an insult to the city council and all of us, because we go by that daily, and we see more cars going, and the building's still up. So I think it's appalling to the city council and the mayor that they haven't responded. Also, on the parking lot, it's a complete error. We should get involved with that issue because they do not have a license to store cars. We all mentioned that, and I think we have to do something very fast to notify the owners. Huh? Yeah. I'm talking about Wonderland, not that place, no. No, exactly, just the dog track.
Mr. President,
strictly the dog track.
Point of information.
John?
They had a special permit, which was issued by the city council and expired on June 30th, 2015.
Right.
The licensing board in this city cannot, under any circumstances, issue a parking lot license, which would be $25 per year per car, for any business in the city that has a license to park cars. So, as a result of them not having that special permit, the licensing board can't issue them a license.
Exactly.
It's very clear. And that's why I said within 2 weeks, I'd like to have a meeting in this chamber with the mayor and any member of the city council and the zoning officer that wants to attend, and let's get a commitment from them right away.
Exactly.
And some revenue coming into the city from that parking. Thank you.
Councilor Rotondo.
Wow. $25 per spot. By the way,
That's
that was
a lot.
great elocution. $25 per spot. That's a joke. It's almost, what, 100, 150 down at the airport, maybe $200. We're getting fleeced as a city.
We're not even getting fleeced, we're not getting...
Exactly.
Well, that's true, John. We're not getting, but what about the other places? What about any other car facility here? We got to really think about increasing the value of that to $1,000 at the very least per year.
Yep. No question.
Per spot. If we're going to absorb the traffic, if our people are going to get, I mean, the traffic from this car facility down on at Wonderland, I mean, we should absolutely be absorbed to it. I mean, it's crazy just to think about what they're putting there. I mean, at this point, this is the parking lot. I mean, I don't know if you can focus in on this, Rick, but it's the parking lot, and it's filled with cars that have, you know, nice little stickers from somebody's, you know, Ernie Bach, someplace like that, I guess. But, you know, there's 4,000 plus cars there. That's huge. 4,000 plus cars times, how many cars can be parked on there, Ira?
400 or 500, anyways.
800.
Yeah.
That's what the license was.
800. So 800 times 1,000, that's $800,000 in the
Per
future.
year. Per
That's
year.
what we should be doing, not $25. That's chump change.
Right.
Thank you.
We get zero.
Right, we are getting zero.
So on the motion, all those in favor? All those opposed? So voted.
Council Order 17-151, motion presented by Councilor Janino, that the City Council issue a certificate of appreciation to Bianco and Sons for being in business for 50 years.
Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. So it's a very sad week for the City of Revere. We're losing a business that's been here for over 50 years. I actually just got a copy of an article that our very own Sue Woodcock wrote for the Revere Journal about Bianco and Sons. They've been in business for 57 years. And I'll save my comments for that night, but I think that they're a business that definitely deserves our appreciation and have been great neighbors in the city.
Certificate of appreciation, very good. All those in favor, all those opposed? So voted.
Council Order 17-152, motion presented by Councilor Rotondo, that the City Solicitor, Chief of Police, and members of the gang unit meet to discuss classification within the gang book and criteria to be considered a gang member.
Speak for yourself.
Speaks for itself.
Okay, let's go to Charlie Patch's Public Safety Subcommittee. 153.
17-153, motion presented by Councilor Rotondo, that the City of Revere look into the feasibility of mandating all restaurants with a public bathroom to have a first aid kit that contains Narcan.
Want to speak? Councilor Rotondo.
Thank you. Unfortunately, time and again, I go into I hate to use the term Dunkin' Donuts, but a Dunkin' Donuts, and the person is passed out in the bathroom. So at this point, you know, I've been told that there's been incidents in which people have been there and have to wait for the fire department or the police. And, you know, the one thing that I have to tell you is for every second you're anoxic, your increased risk of going into cardiac arrest or, for that matter, having a stroke is so much greater. And Narcan is just giving somebody another chance at life. Whether you agree with the issue of the addiction, you know, I'm not here, I believe in no stigma, because we can't save people if we don't take the stigma away. And at this point, I think that at every opportunity that we can save a life, I think we should try it. And quite honestly, this isn't a big lift for restaurants that have a public bathroom. And maybe we should pass this by the city solicitor, but at the end of the day, no one's going to get in trouble by administering Narcan. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? All those in favor? All those opposed? So voted.
Council Order -7156, motion presented by Council President Haas, Councilor McKenna, and Councilor Moribito, that the mayor request inspectional services to contact the owners of McMackin Field to ensure that the property is thoroughly sprayed for mosquitoes due to standing water.
Thank you. Councilor McKenna?
This speaks for itself, but I would like to put in addition to this, that they cut the grass also, because the grass is getting really high.
Right. Councilor Moribito?
Check. You guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Check, okay. All those in favor?
Wait,
Oh, so
no, yeah, I'm gonna start rapping. I don't know what my colleague's talking about. I can't even see the grass over the puddle of water, but we both agree that this stagnant water, it just is a breeding ground for mosquitoes that bring diseases. So I think it's something we need to take care of.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? I know. All those in favor? All those opposed? So voted.
Council Order 17-157, motion presented by Councilor Powers, that the mayor direct the DPW to replace the street signs for Maggie Rd and Putnam Rd.
Speaks for itself.
In the interest of brevity, it speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Council Order 17-158, motion presented by Councilors McKenna and Keefe, that the mayor request the Mass DOT to clean up the embankments along Allen O'Brien Bridge on both sides of the bridge. The enormous amount of litter is an eyesore for both Revere and Chelsea.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to put in addition to this motion, Lee Burbank Highway, the overpass, the exit and off-ramp to Revere Beach Parkway be cleaned also. Thank you.
So moved. Councillor Keefe.
In agreement with her, and I think it speaks for itself.
All those
Thank you.
in favor, so Councillor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a point that I've had conversation with emails with aide at in the State House, and it's been for the along Route 1, along Assey, Lucia, the on-ramp, the off-ramp by the dog park, and I just get no response.
I think we should go to a state delegation without question.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? So voted.
Council Order 17-159, motion presented by Councilor McKenna, that the mayor request inspectional services to require Sullivan Tire, Majestic Auto, the Full House Barbecue, and Alliance Capital to place a silk fence with haystacks along their properties to stop litter and debris from falling into Green Creek, which abuts their properties. Secondly, that the mayor request inspectional services to have the owner of Stop and Shop replace the missing fence at the entrance of Thomasella Way in Green Creek to stop the flow of shopping carts from going into the creek.
Councilor McKenna.
This speaks for itself, but I would just like to add a commendment to Billy Settapane for taking this on and placing a silk fence along his property to relieve the litter at Lee's Trailer Park, and he did clean up the creek, so I would like to commend him for that. Thank you.
All those in favor? All those opposed? So voted.
Council Order 17-160, motion presented by Councilors Novoselsky and McKenna, that the mayor requests the arborist from National Grid to appear before the City Council to discuss the horrendous pruning of trees throughout the city.
Councilor Novoselsky.
I'll yield to my colleague, Councilor.
This is my
McKenna.
fourth
It's her baby.
motion, but as you can see on the screen, National Grid has come in and butchered city trees. They should be cut down and replaced by the company. 6 years ago, I met with the senior arborist, Janice Ramsey from National Grid. We agreed that cutting these trees in a round-shaped trim would work better for the tree instead of cutting the middle out of them. Cutting the middle out of these trees, it does not allow the branches on the side to hold the weight, so these trees break and they fall down. So I would like to see the arborist come before us, and because eventually these trees will have to be cut down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Councilman McKenna kind of set the stage for everything, but several of those photographs with trees on Arlington Avenue, and you can see that they were V-shaped. Yeah. And what's happened, that those were cut maybe about 9-10 years ago. And over the years, the heavy branches on the side have been falling on cars on the street, especially during snowstorms and ice storms. So we are taking those trees down and putting up new trees anyways, but because we're doing the street over. But it's a joint effort, and we just want National Grid to understand that we're not happy, just like our double poles. Thank you.
Any others? All those in favor, all those opposed? So voted.
Council Order 17-161, motion presented by Councilor Rotondo, that the city examine how, if possible, to expedite the purchase order process. For example, it should not take a month for any person in city government to purchase a camera, laptop, or any other product under $1,500 for the operation of city government.
Councilor Rotondo.
Speaks for itself.
All those in favor? All those opposed? So voted.
So late motion presented by Councilor Rotondo that the mayor come before the Revere City Council to discuss the discontinuation of Recycle Bank.
Speaks for itself.
There's a late communication from the city engineer relative to various street acceptances for safe routes to school.
Mr. President.
All those, Councilor Novoselsky.
Mr. President, just so everybody knows, over the years that the older streets in Shirley, in the city, many of the streets were not accepted for various reasons. You know, there's short streets in between other streets just to do connections. And Fitzhenry Square is one particular roadway that was never accepted. Blake Street from Garfield Ave up to North Shore Road was never accepted. And Alger Road is behind the Garfield School. So when they built the school, they created the road, but never accepted it. So we hope that these will be accepted so we can do the Safe Routes program. Thank you.
I agree with that, Council, but I think the last time we accepted roads, when I was a freshman councilor, accepted roads, you know, turning into gold for the City of Revere. I think we should have Frank Stringy check out how many accepted roads that we are lacking in the Revere. There's a lot of them, I'm sure. And we get money reimbursements from the state on that. Although, on the motion, public, on this? Public hearing? Any other information? There being none, we'll adjourn to May 22nd.